Good evening. Welcome to this meeting of the Arlington Board of Selectmen. We are meeting at approximately 7:15 p.m. on Monday, July 24th, 2017. We're in the Selectmen's Chambers of the Robbins Memorial Town Hall, 730 Mass Ave, Arlington, Mass. I'm Chair Joseph Curo, Vice Chair Stephen Byrne, Diane Mahan, and Dan Dunn. Our colleague, Mr. Grilli, has a conflict which prevents his attendance this evening. We also have professional staff, Town Manager Adam Chapdelaine, Town Council Douglas Heim, and our Board Administrator Marie Kropalka with us. So the author Veronica Roth, in her novel Insurgent, said, "No matter how long you train someone to be brave, you never know if they are or not until something real happens." And last week, something very real happened at our neighboring community of Concord. And by the good grace of God, one of our off-duty police officers was on the scene at that time and saved a life. We're very happy and honored to welcome Officer Matthew Riley and his lovely family to be with us, along with Chief Ryan, to honor you for this. And we'd like to read a short proclamation by the board to recognize your actions on that day. Whereas Arlington Police Officer Matthew Riley was off duty on the morning of Monday, July 17th, and whereas Officer Riley was enjoying time with his family at Walden Pond in Concord, Massachusetts, and whereas an imperiled swimmer was in dire need of assistance, and whereas Officer Riley took swift and selfless action, relying on his training and experience to perform a life-saving rescue of the endangered swimmer, and whereas the people of Arlington wish to express their sincere gratitude for his heroic actions in answering the call of duty without regard for time or place, now therefore be it resolved that we, the members of the Board of Selectmen, do hereby proclaim July 24th to be Matthew Riley Day in the town of Arlington, and thank him for his exemplary actions as both a citizen and Arlington police officer on behalf of all the town's residents. And it is signed by each member of the board and attested to by Ms. Kropalka. Would like to present this to you. I think it's, I'd like to recognize Chief Ryan.
If I may, honorable members of the board, Mr. Chairman, as I watched the news footage that covered the event that night, Matt took a moment with one of the news stations to say, and I think it's very important to highlight this, he said, "We take our oath of office very seriously. And it doesn't end at the end of the day when we hang up our uniform." Those words are so critically important and highlight the mindset of all of our first responders, our police officers, our firefighters, our 911 dispatchers. And we're blessed in Arlington to have an incredible workforce dedicated to their mission, and I think this really exemplifies all of them. And I just wanted to highlight those comments that he made on Fox 25. I think it was Fox 25, wasn't it? Yeah, so I was scanning it, 10 o'clock at night trying to, but I'm so very proud of him, and I know his daughter high-fived him at the shores of Walden Pond, and so I just wanted to point that out, Mr. Chairman. And thank you to the members of the board for recognizing our hero.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Officer Riley. I think we know that these types of situations they unfold very, very quickly. And from the accounts I read, it sounds like the training that you've received as well as an officer in the Arlington Police Department really played a role.
And I will point out, Mr. Chairman, when the police captain from the Concord Police called me, he emphasized, he said, this was a real save. Mm-hmm. He said, I want to emphasize, this was a real save. The victim had cramped up and was going under, and we're so very proud of Officer Riley, really.
Would you like to?
He's a man of few words, and he's a humble man, and I'm so proud of him. Thank you.
Either Mike, Ms. Mahan.
I just want to also say thank you, and it's also, as the chief has highlighted, an excellent testament to what our police officers do 24/7, 365 days of the year. And I want to thank you and your family, your wife and children, because I know what a sacrifice it is in terms of hours that he's on the clock, but also similar vein to what Chief Ryan said, you know, even when you're on your own time, enjoying some family time, and I'm privileged to know many of the Arlington police officers, and it's very distinctive when you go to an event with any one of them, either he or she, I always see, whether we're in a room or outside in a crowd, you can see them scanning, getting their touch points and landmarks, and so I do want to thank your family for, you know, kind of giving that sacrifice also, and I don't really know words to say thank you. I know you're the kind of person that you don't want thanks. You just did what you saw unfolding, what you were trained to do, and as a decent human being who thankfully had the skills. And very grateful you were there to represent the town of Arlington. But more importantly, as the chief said, a real save to save that person's life. So thank you so much. Look to many years on the Arlington Police Force with you.
Great. And I think that's a fine way to summarize this. So with the board's appreciation, thank you very much again, and I'm sure the people of Concord feel the same.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and all of our members of the board. Thank you. Good job.
Good job, officer. Oh, my gosh.
This guy's one step closer to
Yeah.
taking this
I
place.
was going to say, there's an empty seat here. You want to leave him?
We got an empty seat. Okay, thank you very much. So now we move on to welcome once again our treasurer, Mr. Carmen, back to the hall and to the microphone. Determination of maximum useful life of two planned FY 2018 capital asset purchases to be financed. Mr. Carmen.
Yes, correct. So just as a quick preface, because I think I confused some people when I put this request in, this is a fairly standard request that the Treasurer's Office makes to the Board of Selectmen to adjust the useful life of certain assets. Where I think we threw a wrinkle in this year is it's usually wrapped in with the borrowing authorization. Treasurer's Office historically has come here and asked for a few things and to approve the borrowing. But this was, I mean, it was ready the day after the capital budget was approved, because the implied borrowing in the capital budget assumes that these two actions are taken. So Michael and I were talking about it and said, well, if it's ready, we might as well just bring it to you guys and ask you to consider it. So as the documents say, we're requesting that a fire truck at the cost of $575,000, which has already been approved in the capital budget, that you agree to extend the life of it from 5 years to 20 years. The comment I'll make on that is, if you remember some of our discussions at town meetings over the year on fire trucks, these things go for 25, 30 years. These aren't short assets. A 20-year really adjusts the useful life, you know, appropriately. And then the second asset for $85,000 is the DPW truck with all the assorted stuff, I'll say, that comes with the DPW truck, and that's adjusting that from 5 to 7 years.
Very good. Do any of my colleagues have any questions, comments, or a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Byrne. I presume you are moving the language which has been prescribed to us by
That is
by
certainly,
the
as you have
treasurer.
read my mind, what I was moving.
Yes, I read your mind. Okay, moved by Mr. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Byrne. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you very much. Do you have anything else to add?
I'm the
Mr.
next
Chairman?
item on the list.
Next one.
What's that? Next item on the list?
No, I'm the
You
next
are the
item.
next item on
Yes.
the list. I am sorry. Okay, next item on the list. We have approval, request to implement optional electronic tax and fee billing systems. Mr. Carmen.
So as you know via the memo Sandy Pooler sent out last week or the week before, the town has launched its new tax collection software, Munis, and with that, a new online payment system under Invoice Cloud. It's pretty exciting. It's kind of modern, as Mike Morse likes to say. We're in 2010. So in our quest to continue moving to, I think the goal, as Mike jokingly says to me, is to be in the year 2020 in 2020. But in our quest to get there, we would like to move forward on the next stage of the project, which is implementing an electronic invoice billing system. It's optional. It's not required of the taxpayers. You have to opt into it. If you don't want to be in it, you can opt out. Under statute, which is attached to the next page of your packet, we need approval from the Board of Selectmen. And so, again, it seems silly to start working on a project that is not approved. And so now I'm here asking for your approval so we can start working on it. The expectation is if the board approves it, allows us to move forward with electronic billing, that we would likely have it out by the Q3 billing, which would be the February 1st tax bills, which is, I mean, I think we could probably have it out by Q2, but we'd be rushing a whole bunch of other stuff in there. And it's kind of weird doing it in Q2 because we're also setting the tax rate at that point, so you're really stressing out people. So we said, let's go to Q3. Pretty comfortable it can go out there and it would be, would be off and running.
All right, very well. Any of my colleagues, Mr. Byrne?
Very happy to move approval on this. Thank you very much, Dean. I think this is obviously a great step forward. And 2010 was a good year, so I'm happy we're catching up. What do you see the rollout of this playing out like?
So it's interesting. We've not a lot of fewer communities than you think have implemented it. It's under 100 communities have implemented it.
Interesting.
And in Belmont, when they implemented it, they turned it on, and they didn't advertise it. They didn't say anything to anyone. They just left it out there. And I think they got about 10 to 15% of their residents to sign up for it unprompted. And so I would expect a similar result in Arlington. What we're thinking is anybody who jumps into first I'd say anybody who jumps into electronic payment might also go for this. But anybody under the new system, if you noticed, you can do recurring payments, so you could just schedule your payment to come out each quarter. Anybody that signs up for that, I'm assuming is probably going to sign up for electronic invoicing. So the thought would be to, Q3, Q4, just leave it out there. Let anybody who wants to sign up, and then probably in the next fiscal year, start actually marketing it to people and saying, you really should go in this direction, because for a lot of residents, I myself included, this is the only paper bill I get. And so I think a lot of people are going to be excited to say, okay, let's get rid of that paper bill, the last one.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Mr. Dunn?
So I am just delighted to see this one, which is of course no surprise, because I was here standing at that microphone, 14 years ago with Annie LaCourte, and the two of us, neither of us was on the Board of Selectmen, but we knew that we wanted to change the way IT worked in Arlington, and this was one of the things that we talked about trying to do. And so it took a while. It's taking a while, but I'm so excited to see it actually happening. Move approval.
I think Mr. Byrne.
Oh, sorry,
So
second.
You're welcome to
I
second.
apologize.
No worries.
No, thanks.
I'll just add that I'm also thrilled. I've worked professionally on electronic bill presentment and payment systems, and that was quite a long time ago. That was, I think, 2001 when I worked on those. And I think that there are a lot of people who would find it unusual that any utility or any other major bill that they receive from a financial institution on a recurring basis that wouldn't be an electronic option. So very happy to see you moving us in this direction, and I'll be happy to support the motion as well. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? It's approved unanimously. Thank you very
Excellent.
much
Thank
for
you.
the good work.
One more topic that's
Sure.
not on the agenda. It's just something I'll mention. We're not asking you to take any votes on it. So, and I'm going to work with Mr. Greeley on this because, as you know, at your last meeting, he
Yep.
volunteered to help on the scholarship committee. But I did want to note that an Arlington resident, I'm going to butcher this name, and I've tried all day, and I'm still not going to get it. Mr. Krekor Ermonian passed away on May 7th, 2017. So, obviously, the passing of any resident is sad. But the reason I note his passing is he has left the town of Arlington in a scholarship bearing his name, the sum of $100,000, which is really cool. And it will add to our Dollars for Scholars program. And so what Mr. Greeley and I are going to do is, as part of looking at the scholarship funds and looking at the committee, find a way to recognize people who donate that amount of money. So it was interesting when I first when I first heard of it, I thought, wow, that must be the first person to donate that large amount of money. And then I found out it wasn't even close to the first person. And so I said, wow, as part of our work, we're gonna come up with a way to better recognize people who donate that large of money, because it seems, at the moment I'm struggling, and I sent a letter to his attorney saying, I struggle with the thought of just writing thank you on a piece of paper and sending it back. I mean, it seems like too large a sum of money to just do that. And so, Mr. Greeley and I will work on that. But I did want to note it to the board as soon as I could.
We appreciate that. And I think having worked with Mr. Greeley, we know that he takes that very seriously, making sure that we acknowledge those types of contributions to the town. So I think we've got the right guy on there working with you.
Absolutely, you do. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next agenda item. We do have a request for a vote for a dangerous dog hearing. We have the backup material as well as the history on this particular case in the packet. I want to note that I believe the last time, as a result of some changes in state law, what the board did choose to do was we chose to authorize and request the police department to both investigate the complaint and to adjudicate a decision on the complaint with with a duly appointed hearing officer, and we delegated that responsibility. I don't know if Mr. Heim, if you would like to, if I've misstated anything in that regard.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. Consistent with this board's practice, what we've typically done is refer any request for a dangerous dog hearing to the police department for investigation, hearing, and determination. Chief Ryan, under the revisions to the law, which were almost 4 or 5 years old now, will appoint a hearing officer as the designee to make that determination. So there will be a formal hearing. Both parties will have the opportunity to present evidence for some limited examination, and the animal control officer will also be available at that hearing to provide perspective and sort of expert analysis of the disputed, to my understanding, claims.
Great, thank you, Mr. Heim. Ms. Mahan?
I'd like to move receipt of the dangerous dog hearing request, as well as the 2 reference materials submitted, and to, in that motion, also refer this to the Arlington Police Department to conduct any hearing they see fit.
We have a motion by Ms. Mahan, do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Byrne. Do we have any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. All opposed? It's passed unanimously. Thank you very much. We now move on to the consent agenda. Hold on, let me just get the PDF. I apologize.
No, my machine
Yeah.
I just got a weird picture.
Yeah, this just froze up. Okay. The consent agenda. Minutes of the meeting, June 19th, 2017. Request for a special one-day beer and wine license, 8517 at Whittemore Robbins House for a private event, Cure and Glicksman Wedding. Request for a special one-day beer and wine license, 8617 at Whittemore Robbins House for the Cyrus Dallin Art Museum Summer Soiree Fundraiser, Jerry Tremblay, Cyrus Dallin Board of Trustees, reappointments, Arlington Preservation Fund, terms to expire 8/31/2020, Clark Griffith and Patrick Guthrie. Request for contractor drain layer license, Cavalieri Construction Company Incorporated, Everett, Mass., and appointment of new election workers. Fernando Cuervo Torello, 40 Columbia Road, Democrat Precinct 19. Nicholas Cuervo Torello, 40 Columbia Road, Democrat Precinct 19. Julia Devlin, 354 Mystic Street, unenrolled, Precinct 13. Patricia Kenna, 60 Hathaway Circle, unenrolled, Precinct 18. Karen Lambrick, 53 School Street, Democrat, Precinct 21. Nora Marr, 64 Maynard Street, Democrat, Precinct 21. Mary Torpy, 975 Massachusetts Avenue, unenrolled, Precinct 13. And Whitney, 19 Washington Avenue, Democrat, Precinct 19. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to any of the items on the agenda? Please.
Hi, I'm Jerry Tremblay. I'm one of the directors at the Cyrus Dallin Art Museum.
And I'm Paul McGaffigan, I'm the treasurer of the museum.
And we are here regarding the liquor license for our 3rd annual soiree at the Whittemore Robbins House on Sunday, August 6th, 5 to 8:30. This year, our theme is an evening in Paris, because Cyrus Dallin spent several years studying in Paris. I'd like to tell you a little bit about the event, so you know what we're doing. We've had a couple of these in the past. I believe you all received an invitation at home, but I think there's also one on your desk. We are going to have gourmet French hors d'oeuvres. We're going to have desserts and cocktails, French music. We're going to have a caricature artist who will do caricatures for our guests free of charge. And we're going to have a photographer. And very kindly, Kevin Greeley has consented to be our MC for our silent auction. And we know Kevin, we know how
Silence.
Silent?
how silent Kevin is, and he certainly will do well by us, and we appreciate his support and certainly the support we've received from all of you. So we actually are having 2 auctions. We posted an online auction this weekend, and that's going to be separate from the silent auction, which is actually at the soiree because it's very difficult to coordinate both of them. So, for example, the silent auction will be now until August 14th, and you'll see in your little packet information about the silent auction. So we have theater tickets, music, tickets to Disney. We have 3 weekend getaways, which frankly are fabulous. Just, even if you don't want to bid on anything, take a look at some of the items we have, and the weekend getaways are actually phenomenal. We have land and water tours, dance, cooking, art, French classes, fine arts, and collectibles, all on the silent auction. The silent auction at the, online auction, excuse me. The night of the soiree, we will have the silent auction. We have some of the same items in that we were able to break up tickets. So for example, there are tickets available for a tour of Cyrus Dallon's house at 69 Oakland Avenue, and other tickets available for Bob Shore's excuse me, Skylight Studio in Woburn, where you can see how a sculptor restorer does his craft. And we think it's going to be a great event. You're all invited, as you know. We'd love to see you. And of course, the event and the auctions are to help fund the museum operations, to help us purchase and preserve works of art by Cyrus Dallon, and continue our adult and children programs and visitor experiences that we have. So our tickets are $60, and they're $75 at the door. And we, the last couple of years, had a terrific time.
Anybody that's gone in the past, you've talked to them and they'll tell you it's been a wonderful day, a wonderful time. And all the money that we collect goes to the museum. None of it goes anywhere else. It's all for the museum. Everybody that works at the museum does it as a volunteer, so nobody is paid.
Except 1/2 time.
We do employ a part-time curator, but that again comes out of the funds of the museum and doesn't come out of the town at all. And so anybody looking at it saying, where does the money go? It goes to that museum right over across the street. And we're very grateful for all the work the selectmen have done for us in the past, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate all your support. Adam has been very supportive as well.
Yeah.
Marie, of course, as well. So thank you very much.
And we'd
And we
appreciate
hope
you
to
very
see you.
much.
Thank you.
And I'll testify that it is a great time.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And we appreciate you granting that one-day liquor license.
Are there any questions for?
No?
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here for anything else on the consent agenda that I read through? No. Okay.
Sorry,
Ms. Vaughn, I'm sorry.
premature, I apologize. Move approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seconded by Mr. Byrne?
Done.
Mr. Dunn. Okay. Moved by Ms. Mahan, seconded by Mr. Dunn. Any further comment? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move on to the first of 2 public hearings. The first public hearing is a National Grid petition, Wright Street Public Way. Michael Gerling, the permit representative, is here. Hi.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm actually filling in for Barbara Kelleher, who is our permit representative. I'm her backup. She is taking vacation. But we are respectfully requesting permission to install and maintain approximately 122 feet, more or less, of 6-inch gas main in Wright Street, Arlington, from the existing 6-inch gas main in front of house number 81, proceeding southerly to the start of the private way near Hurd Road.
Okay.
Just for system reinforcement is the reason behind.
I will note that the, I will note that the memo we received from the Public Works Department said that this is a private way, the entire place that you're asking permission for.
Okay.
It is, okay. And so I just want to note for the record that the materials we have, they're actually recommending that we don't issue or deny a grant of location, but that we do transmit the set of recommended conditions for the work to be done.
Okay.
I don't know if you're aware of that. I assume that you've seen the.
Well, I know from Barbara when she briefed me that there, I think this was tabled from the last meeting, and
Yeah.
there wasn't, I guess, a question whether it was a private way or a public way or part private, part public,
Yeah.
so
Okay,
you've answered that question.
okay, so that's the correspondence we have, but does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
And I
Ms.
did
Mahan.
just, I wasn't clear on the exact process. I think, and the chair probably said this and I missed it, that we're not going to issue the grant of location for this, but that you, the applicant, will have to get a street opening permit application and begin that process. So if, I forgot her last name, Barbara.
Barbara Kelleher, yeah,
I'm assuming she's aware of that in this piece of correspondence, so,
right. So that's what we're here, is seeking that request to open the street to install that.
is that something, town council, that we approve, or is that something they go down to the building, Public Works, and start that process? The street opening permit application, I don't ever recall approving those before, or if we have to, that's fine.
Yeah, engineering would issue the street opening permit.
So am I correct, if I may, Mr. Chair, that the process is, we're not granting anything tonight, but we're encouraging the applicant, after we hear from anybody else who wants to speak to this, to go down to Public Works Department and make that request for the street opening permit? We can't,
With the only addition being the expectation that the conditions listed in the memo from engineering would be met, even though this is a private way, meaning that engineering would have to go out and survey all of the town-owned infrastructure, water, sewer, and otherwise to make sure that nothing town-owned was damaged within the private way.
so we will have a
So I
motion.
guess the
We're gonna
motion,
move-
it sounds like the motion is going to be to receive the request and to transmit the recommended conditions of the engineering department to the utility. Does that sound correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay.
Do you have anything else? I see we have others.
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me.
Yes,
I'm Andrew Fraley, I'm the owner of 81 Wright Street.
okay.
After canvassing a few of my neighbors and receiving the notice, I think a number of my neighbors, if I speak for them as well, after talking to them, they're not really in favor of having the gas line extended on the street. Primarily just due, I think, to inconvenience. Particularly, the entire street was repaved by the town a couple of years ago, and we had to live through having the entire street dug up and repaved, which we're all grateful for, and it's been a big improvement to the neighborhood, and all the streets in the area have been recently repaved. I think, at least for me, one of my main concerns is that because the street is new, going through and digging and putting a new gas line onto the road just opens up the street for more wear and tear and a poor use of taxpayer money, as the street's life won't last as long simply due to the harsh winters we have in New England. So I think I speak for, as a homeowner 81 Wright and my neighbors as well, that they're not really in favor of seeing this pipe be put down from 81 to Hurd Street.
Okay, thank you. I want to clarify something, though. I mean, my understanding is that this is a private way that we're discussing.
That's a good question. I don't really know the answer to that.
I think may I, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I believe the board approved a betterment order for Wright
did.
Street a couple of
did.
Remember in the,
Yes.
We
I think it
approved
was
it,
done
I
as a
know.
private way.
So it's a private way. Now, I'll tell you that I've been through this experience because I live on the corner of two private ways. One, there was a gas line extension, and this process is actually referenced in the memo from Public Works to us, is that the neighbors actually have to consent to allow the opening? You have to meet with the gas company.
So most of my neighbors, and myself included, have the understanding that the section of Wright Routes you're on is actually public. I don't see it on my deed. And Wright Street turns private once it hits Hurd Road where it's unpaved. But, you know, we don't have a real answer to that. It's just kind of been hearsay. There is a sign that says private way that's probably about 50 years old that's down at the end of Winchester, but that's about it.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes, please.
I think from the town's perspective, there's not going to be anyone here that's better equipped than engineering to determine what parts are private and which parts are public. So I'm not disputing your account or National Grid's account or anybody else's, but the town engineering and DPW is going to have to apprise us of whether or not any portion of the relevant pieces of Wright Street are private ways, because if they are, the selectmen can only do what we're proposing to do tonight, which is to neither deny or grant it, but just advise that, you know, it's important to get the consent of abutters in a private way, extension of a gas line, and to be aware of town infrastructure.
And that is the advice we have from Public Works. So based on the evidence that's been presented to this board, my understanding is that this is a private way, that you as abutters have the right to reach an agreement with with National Grid on the conditions for restoration if you allow the work to go forward, or
if
you
don't.
also have the ability to not reach an agreement and refuse the work if it is a private way. I mean, that's the information we have here, is that
Okay.
this portion of
So
the-
we'll
of the
need
road
engineering
is-
to actually confirm that it's a private way.
Yeah,
or it's
I mean,
public.
that's, in the memo to us, it indicates that it is.
All right.
Okay, great.
So,
Can I just ask one question?
yeah, please.
I don't want to hold you to this and make it official, but do you have like an estimate or approximation in terms of how many of your neighbors you've spoken to? Less than 5, more than 5? I'm not going to hold you to it, I'm just,
I'd probably say at least 2,
Okay.
and they're right across the street and directly left. One other family is moving, and their house is on the market right now. So, and they're looking to sell quickly, so I don't really think that it would be an issue for them either way.
thank you. Thank you for doing that.
It's time.
I'm sorry, just to add one other thing. I will note that from National Grid's perspective, on their plans, it appears that this is on a public way, but I don't think that town engineering's plans indicate the same. So I understand that there's some discrepancy, but I don't think this board can do anything in the face of that discrepancy.
Likewise, I'd also add that there's been no neighbors or anyone who's actually come, or there's been any discussion on the street of new building or renovation where they would need to put a gas line in for new homes.
Okay, great, thank you. Mr. Gerling, did you have anything to add to?
No, that is correct. Our, rendering or map,
Excuse me.
which is based on town land base, actually indicates that the portion we're looking, the part of the road we're looking to open is in public way. In fact, it looks like we have identified it on the map. Looks like the line between public and private way is basically right at Hurd Street, in the middle of Hurd Street. I believe each of you got a copy of this with
Yep.
the original
Yeah.
request.
We should refer it.
Yeah, I think, yeah. I don't
Mr.
think we can
Dunn.
do anything more.
Yeah, I understand that the map that you're showing us shows that line. The memo from the town engineer indicates a different line, and I'm gonna go with the town engineer until I get more information. So, I'm gonna make a motion, and I'm going to, Mr. Chairman, I want to explicitly say we are neither approving nor denying
Correct.
this,
Grant Road.
and we're referring the applicant to the engineering department for further consultation. And we're also recommending that the applicant talk to the private way owners.
Second.
Is that appropriate?
That is appropriate. Are you also including that we transmit the recommended conditions should the
From
work
the engineer
proceed?
back to the engineer, yes, we
Correct.
should.
Thank you. That is appropriate. That's moved by Mr. Dunn,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Mahan. Any further questions or comments? Is
I
there-
have a further comment.
Yeah, sure.
So I agree with, Dan's motion and everything that's happened, been said so far. I do think we have to start working on road repair and fixing what's underneath the road. It drives me absolutely insane that a road was repaved recently and now we're going back to dig it up. And there has to be better coordination. I know it's something that many people are working on, but I certainly hope that that can be expedited.
May I ask, is there known that there's a gas issue on my street?
It's essentially, you've got gas in front of number 81. And there's a void, there's no gas between 81 and Hurd Street. So they're proposing to link those two mains together to reinforce the system, the flow.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to discuss this matter? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion on the table by Mr. Dunn, seconded by Ms. Mahan. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. We now move on to a request, Spring Road, 3 Spring Road to 15 Spring Road, a request to repair the private way and a betterment order. We have listed on the agenda, Mr. Felix was going to speak to this, or perhaps someone else. Is there anyone who wished to speak to this? Yeah, please.
Thank you for having me. Marie, I personally delivered the letter to Marie. You
Okay.
must all have it. I won't take up everybody's
Could
time.
we just have your name, please?
Mary
Name and
Morgan.
address, please, yeah.
8 Sutherland Road. This is my sister, Cheryl Flynn, 6 Sutherland Road.
Thank you.
So I'm not going to waste your time because you already know what's going on. Basically, we don't want to pave an entire street because of a pothole. It is a large pothole, but nonetheless a pothole. We've paid for that before to have part of the street done, and because of the weather conditions, once again, it erodes. What I needed to come and tell you tonight was the residents of 3 Spring Road have moved. They moved to Washington. Their house is up for sale now. Also, I wanted to reiterate the fact that Mr. Felix had approached the tenant next door to me to get a signature. So I'm not really sure. Thank you. I'm not really sure if the people that he actually got to sign as abutters were actually homeowners. And I think that's about it. So with respect, I'm just asking that in years past, people have come and just put some hot top over a pothole. You know, I've asked, like, if the town's working at the bottom of Sutherland Road, I'll say, if you guys have a little extra, can you just put it in the pothole? And they say, yeah, and they put it in. It's not a mountain. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Thank you. And could you just remind us which address you are? 8?
6 and 8 Sutherland.
6 and 8 Sutherland?
The butters to the street, across from
Okay.
Spring Road.
So 6 and 8 are, okay. It's Mr. Dunn.
Yeah, so I'm confused then, could you come on up to the mic so people, so it says, looking at the packet that we got, there says 8 Sutherland Road has name Morgan/Flynn.
That's correct.
And that's you?
I'm Morgan, she's Flynn.
Excellent, okay.
We're
Okay,
sisters.
Okay, excellent, and it says no, that you didn't approve this.
I did not.
Okay, so you don't want it to happen?
No, I do not.
Okay,
But I was never approached.
okay. And it's, okay.
We
Is-
weren't approached, actually, the people that are renting 6 Sutherland Road, he approached them and asked for the signature.
Okay,
And that's what alerted us to that. And then we finally got a letter from
Letter, so.
the Board of Selectmen. So
All
it's
right.
kind of going through other people,
Okay.
not us. Okay?
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I
sir.
may be missing something, but is there anybody in favor of this who's here?
Yeah. Is there anybody in favor who's here, or in favor or against?
No
No one else here to speak to it?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move we table to a future date.
Second.
Yeah, like,
Okay.
so, when I see, just off the top of my head, when I see a list like that, I have so many people who are in favor of it, and I see one person who's against it, and I also see that, just like based on like what I saw about the place, I'm guessing that the ones who are opposed to it are probably using it the least, based on the geography of what's going on. I would like to hear more from the proponents.
I think that's fair.
Can I come back up and say one more
Please,
Would that be okay?
please.
My sister never
Oh, you have
No, microphone, please, I'm sorry.
My sister has a picture of the pothole. And the rest of it is just rocks and dirt. It's been like that for 70 years, okay? It's all the way up in the back. In the back of this property, way in the end, they have a daycare center where cars are zooming up and in and out of there. They're getting a lot of traffic in the end.
I went up myself.
Oh, you saw the pothole. Okay. That's basically all. I just wanted to show you the pothole.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion on the table by Mr. Dunn, a second by Ms. Mahan to table this. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? It is unanimous, and the matter is tabled to a future meeting. Okay, we now move on to a request for a common victual license, the Granola Bowl Cafe, 1346 Massachusetts Avenue, Emily Patel, shared retail space with Arlington Art Lounge. Hi.
I'm Emily Patel, and this is my partner and sister, Sarah Short.
Hi, welcome,
Thank you.
welcome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about
So,
your plans?
we currently have a small granola company called the Roasted Granola, and we operate out of Emily's Kitchen in Lexington, as well as a commercial kitchen out in Shirley, Massachusetts. And we've been sort of slowly but steadily growing. We're in, I think, a dozen businesses around this area, and we'd like to have our own kitchen. And we've been meeting with the women from the Art Lounge, and the Art Lounge is currently sort of an underutilized space during the day. It's mostly used in the evenings and on the weekends in the evenings. So, and the kitchens, the infrastructure is already existing there for a kitchen, so it just seemed like it would be a nice fit for us. We'd like to open a cafe, calling it the Granola Bowl Cafe. We're very excited about this opportunity. Our cafe, we don't have all the details sorted out yet, but we'd probably like to be open from 7 till 4, predominantly 5 days a week and with flexible hours on the weekend, depending on what's going on at the Art Lounge. So,
Great.
are there any questions we can answer, or?
Ms. Mahan?
Just a housekeeping
Yeah.
matter. In the application, you have Monday through Friday, 7 to 4, Saturday, Sunday, 7 to 1. I'm assuming, and we can, take care of this, it's 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. Saturday and Sunday.
Yes.
So we can just amend your application to include
The AM,
the AM,
Oh, yes,
sorry.
yeah.
The
yes,
AM and PM.
yes.
It's just a housekeeping matter, so
Yeah.
that's the only thing I wanted to.
Okay, great. Any other, Mr. Byrne?
Happy to move approval, and I really like that you're working so closely with the Art Lounge to, make it so it's not vacant during the day. I think that's really, really creative, and I hope that more people start doing similar things. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Moved by Mr. Burns, or second?
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Dunn. Mr. Burns said exactly what I was going to say. I think this is very creative, there's been a lot of energy around
Great.
trying to, insert some vibrancy up in the Heights. And so we're, very happy to see something going in there during the day as well, and maximizing the use of the space. So I think it's actually very creative on part of both of you, Art Lounge and yourselves.
And I live just up the street, so I'm looking forward to working down the street from where I live.
Bit closer than Shirley, right?
Yes.
The good Benny, good Benny,
Yes.
as the kids would say.
Okay, so moved by Mr. Byrne and seconded by Mr. Dunn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome, thank you.
Thank you, good luck.
Okay, we move on to approval of draft liquor license suspension decisions. And we have 3 on the docket. How would you like to handle these, Mr. Heim? One at a time, I would presume.
Yeah, I think if the board is willing, if we could vote on the ones for which there not been supplementary materials presented first.
Yep.
So that would be Zoo's Garden and, sorry, Bistro Duet.
Okay, very well. So the first we have on the agenda is Bistro Duet. Would you like to address that?
I think that, Mr. Chairman, I've drafted decisions that I hope reflect the board's deliberation and analysis in meting out 3-day suspensions for first-time violations of our alcohol, local rules and regulations, as well as ABCC rules and regulations and state law. I've tried to capture the discussion. If any of you have additional comments that you'd like me to insert in an amended version of this, I'd be happy to do so.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions on this? I would like to, as we start these, I'd like to thank our colleague, Ms. Mahan, as well, because I know that she brought her professional skills to bear and created a comprehensive transcript of our proceedings. It was.
No, I didn't, I oversaw it.
Oversaw it,
Yes,
sorry.
yes. I would wanted to make sure I
Okay.
stepped back. I made sure it wasn't too much or too little.
Got it. Okay, hearing no questions, do we have a motion on the draft decision for,
Move approval of the draft decision to a final decision by vote of this board.
moved by Ms. Mahan, do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Dunn. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? It is unanimous. We now move on to the draft decision in the case of Jou's Garden. Do we have a motion on that?
Move approval.
Moved by Mr. Dunn,
Second?
seconded by Ms. Mahan. Any further questions, comments? Anything you'd like to add,
No, sir.
Mr. Heim? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Now we move on to our draft decision on Alexander Liquors. I do understand that there has been, as you said, supplementary material that has been submitted since our initial decision.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, two sort of chief matters. One is, within the decision itself, I'll note some minor editorial changes that I want the board to be aware of and to be able to vote on as amended. First, it was pointed out to me that the date of a prior tobacco compliance failure was incorrect in the timeline on page 11. It should be March 16th, 2016, and April 6th, 2016 for the hearing and order, not 2017. And I've adjusted the decision accordingly in terms of any narrative references there too. Second, there, within the findings of fact, a member of the board requested some further discussion on assurances made at the November 2016 hearing for the prior violation involving the medical marijuana. So I've inserted a discussion point on that, as well as a reference to some ambiguity about the discipline and further training that the employee who was who was working at the store when the violation occurred, in the factual narrative as well. So those are just minor tweaks. If the board finds them acceptable, again, it's basically correction of those dates, noting that there's some ambiguity in testimony about whether the employee at issue was disciplined or retrained, and some reference to assurances provided by the license holder to this body that there wouldn't be further issues going forward on the November 28th, 2016 hearing. Okay. So if the board finds the substance of the decision acceptable, the second matter before you is the license holder, through counsel, Attorney William Kelly, has asked this board for reconsideration of its decision. I will note that reconsideration is not procedurally required in either the Board of Selectmen's regulations as a local licensing authority or by the ABCC. That said, the ABCC does encourage local licensing authorities to avail themselves of opportunities to see whether or not, based on any additional information or representations made by a license holder, especially in the case of something serious like a revocation, is willing to make at a subsequent proceeding. I think they would encourage this board to hear out Mr. Kelly and Mr. Kushnerski and what their proposal is with respect to avoiding ratifying this board's previous vote to revoke the license. If the board is not inclined to reconsider, I think you would essentially just vote to say that we're approving the decision as it stands and making any other changes that you want to direct me to make. If the board is inclined to reconsider, then you would come up with some alternate position, and you'd probably have to give me time to revise the decision because it would be quite a departure from what's been prepared. Final note, there are 4 of you, which means that it would require a 3-1 vote. Otherwise, a 2-2 vote on any reconsideration would essentially result in the previous decision being upheld. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I ask Mr. Kelly or Mr. Kuczynski to come forward, was there anything anyone wanted to ask council?
I just want to inform my colleagues that I did have a conversation with Attorney Heim about 2 other areas which I was on the fence about whether to include or not, and the sense that I have right now is pending the vote of this board here tonight in terms of this final decision or for something else, that I think as the process lays out, if we do go with this final decision, it will lay out with any sort of hearing that ABCC has. Basically, there's no need just to throw everything in there. It could be addressed, further on down the road. So I just want to let my colleagues know that I did speak to Attorney Heim about that, and he gave me the pros and cons, and I'm going to wait until it gets further in the process, if that's the way the board votes tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mahan. Mr. Kelly or Mr. Kuczynski, did you want to address the material provided?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, and through you to the members of the board.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you could just identify yourself for the record.
My name is Bill Kelly. I'm an attorney with the law firm of counsel to the law firm of Considine and Fury in Boston. And I am here tonight because I represent Alexander Kuczynski, Arlington Liquors, who was the subject of your hearing just last month in June. First, I did not represent him before that hearing, but shortly after that vote and that hearing, I was contacted and retained to help him with this situation. First of all, I would like to first commend the town on the quality of its website. The documentation, coupled with the video of that prior meeting, quite frankly, I was able to get a very real flavor of the prior proceedings, and you are to be commended with that. Secondly, I'd like to commend your town council, who probably needs no commendation to you, with his responsiveness and his professionalism and courtesy that he extended to me as I reached out to have a communication in regards to this process, to be here tonight to address the board. And thank you for that. And you should have in your packet, I did submit a memorandum of information that I thought would be helpful to you. My goal here tonight is to work with you to get to a mutually agreeable resolution and reconsideration of the penalty imposed on Arlington Liquors as a result of his failing the compliance check that was operated, I guess, back in February, if my memory serves me correctly. And I led in the memo with some information that to give you a flavor of where the ABCC stands on the subject of compliance checks when they are appealed from action of local licensing authorities like yourself. And the decision-making at the ABCC has been consistent through a number of years that are referenced in the case that is available on the website for the ABCC from 2014, in which they repeated a principle and a standard that they established and have repeated through the years, which is that the penalty of revocation would not be upheld by them as a sanction and penalty for violating a compliance check. The reason for that they lay out in their decisions. The public policy behind a compliance check such as this is educating the license holder, educating them in the risks that are rampant when they make sales of alcoholic beverages that is subject to a minimum legal drinking age without even asking for an identification. Certainly, the case decisions are well documented that in the view of the ABCC, and indeed in the ABCC stings they run themselves, their guidelines direct the underage operative to exit the premises as soon as the vendor looks at them and says, "Can I see an ID?" It's on this basis that during a period of 3 or 4 years, when the ABCC was going across the Commonwealth running regional training seminars for both local licensing authorities and license holders themselves, that they were told in a PowerPoint presentation that, in fact, what's the best way to pass a compliance check? And that is to use 4 magic words. Got an ID. With that, under the ABCC approved guidelines, they passed. It's a minimally invasive inquiry on the licensed and legitimate business, and yet it balances the need to educate the licensees that they need to be vigilant about that. So with that in mind, I wanted to get that information to you to set the legal construct within which the decision is made by you as to what sanction to impose for failing a sting. Specifically as to the business owned by Mr. Krasnerski, there were also submitted to you a series of 10 changes that have been effected in the operation of his business. Reviewing the video of your hearing when Mr. Krasnerski represented himself, I saw loud and clear the concerns of the board that things had to change. And indeed, in consulting with Mr. Krasnerski, that message has come through loud and clear to him. And he has committed and, in fact, enacted changes to the method in which he does his business. And those 10 points are specified in the memorandum in which I request and give reasons as to why I think reconsideration of the penalty is appropriate. The first is that Mr. Krasnerski went out and looked for a guide that would give him some operating procedures that would help him avoid future compliance issues. And he found this guide that is published by an entity called the Responsible Retailer Forum. That is an educational forum whose principal is Dr. Brad Krever. I'm familiar with Dr. Krever through the years. And in fact, their goal is to get information to licensed retailers so that they can avoid these problems that are inherent anytime you sell a legal consumer product that has a minimum age for purchase and consumption. And Mr. Krasnerski found that guide, and he has extracted from it, I think appropriately, that those pages that apply to an off-premise retailer or package store like the business he runs. And he has developed and incorporated that into a new guide for his employees that gives instruction and implements what I submit are best practices by any vendor selling beverage alcohol. Mr. Krasnerski is not just getting the paperwork and building a paper record. He's indicated that all new employees will be required to read this guide and sign off on it, that in fact they have read it before they begin working their first shift. In fact, new employees do not work by themselves. They work with a more experienced employee, I'm advised, who helps advance the new employees' comfort level and knowledge on the need to ask for an identification and to get comfortable with that ask. Because if we haven't worked behind a bar, sometimes there is a little bit of a learning curve where you get a comfort level of asking someone, may I see an ID, before you sell or serve to them. They are also signing off the new employees on that they must be aware that they are dealing with an age-restricted product and one that cannot be sold to someone who's visibly intoxicated. Mr. Krasnerski has in his possession tonight, and we don't have them included in your packet, actual sign-offs from the employees that in fact they have read this guide and that they are employing these procedures already in response to the lesson learned at his last appearance with the board. He has monthly meetings with the employees to stress that they must be aware of the need to ask for an ID and also to identify false identification. False identifications by underage purchasers, it seems, are like waves on the beach. Every day, morning, noon, and night, they keep crashing on the shores of these stores. And in fact, there's a great risk to the store. Because if they let just one through, as he did when he got tested and failed, he faces a very real economic penalty. And not only does Mr. Kushnerski face that penalty as a result of losing the licensed business, but also the employees who have jobs there, who weren't even on duty on the night of the compliance check. They're losing too, particularly whereas here the board voted to revoke. And if that license goes, all the jobs, the opportunities, and the employment that Mr. Kushnerski brought to Arlington when he made the investment in this store, almost 6 years ago now, they will lose something as well. In addition, Mr. Kushnerski has a point-of-sale computer system, which is not uncommon with retailers in this day and age. But a feature of Mr. Kushnerski's point-of-sale computer is that he's able to log into that, the identification that was checked for a consumer who wished to buy alcoholic beverages at his establishment. You have in your packet, I was able to include a screenshot, I think it's tab A, to the memorandum I submitted in support, that shows exactly the logins that happened on particular specified dates. Now, it's my understanding that this point-of-sale system is not a computer per se with a printout, et cetera, but I am also informed the snapshots can be generated for any specified period of time. So that lends itself to the possibility, to the extent that the board were interested in receiving the information and the documented information, screenshots on a periodic basis, whether it be a certain date, time and date, or just leave it subject to inspection by your agents on the Police Department of Arlington, to go in and ask him for a screenshot of the log of IDs for sales. In addition, the staff and Mr. Kushnerski don't simply ask for an ID. His experience is that they check it to see whether in fact it is false or whether it's valid. And when they happen to come upon a false identification, you have in the packet as tab 2, I believe, samples of the false identifications that are identified and abandoned at his store by apparently persons who are under the legal drinking age. Now, in the past, Mr. Kushnerski informs me that he turns them over to the Arlington police, and there was a question whether that could be verified or not. Well, he's going to change the way he does that. And in fact, as a tab 3, I believe, he will continue to turn those over to the Arlington police, but there's going to be a cover letter that documents exactly what's going there. And he would welcome the guidance from the board, from the chief, whoever you may feel appropriate, as to who it's best to direct that letter to send those false identifications. Because as I mentioned, every single day, like waves on the beach, the underage are going to try to get in. And he has a system in place to break the waves so that they don't reach the beach and no harm is visited upon the community of Arlington. He is also in the process of enrolling in the Trade Association for Off-Premise Retailers, the Massachusetts Package Store Association. And indeed, that is the only statewide trade association available for off-premise retailers like Mr. Kushnerski. And he will avail himself then of the resources, the education opportunities, and the advocacy that MassPac delivers to all its members. Among those services and among those benefits and educational opportunities is server training. They have periodic server training events scheduled. They are conducted by the president of MassPAC himself. And I understand that they go around regionally across the state to meet the needs of their membership statewide. The next regularly scheduled server training event for this region, or the closest to this region, will be in Tewksbury. But that won't be scheduled until November of this year. So Mr. Kushnerski is aware that he wants himself and his employees retrained in the server training program, and to that end, he has contacted the president of MassPAC to set up a private training before November. And indeed, I had a conversation with the president of MassPAC myself directly on that. And he indicated that he will and is amenable to scheduling private training where there's a minimum number of scheduled attendees, and he will come to them. Mr. Kushnerski, after the event, coming to speak with you last month, has taken the initiative to set that up. And the minimum number of people at that training, I'm told, is 20 people. He's sending his staff from the Arlington store, his staff from other stores he has, and reaching out to his competitors to bring them into this fold to get their staff retrained in the techniques of responsible alcohol service by their employees, the service. And last, the point in the memo, number 10, he created himself additional signage that went up right inside the front door. You have a copy of that sign on tab 4, where he made it clear at the front entrance, underage people are not welcome, and indeed, if they step through the door, they will be trespassing. From the simple legal notice that he took the initiative of, no trespassing, must be 21 years of age to walk into the package store, unlike a grocery store, unlike a convenience store. His main business is alcohol. It's an age-restricted product. So unlike the grocery store, who just closes down perhaps an aisle, maybe two, or unlike the convenience store that basically locks the refrigerator doors for the beer and pulls a shade down so you can't see it, they're still in business, even if they were to serve an alcohol suspension of 3 to 5 days. The point is that the impact of that penalty on a grocery store and a convenience store is not nearly as impactful, intense, and hurtful as it is to a suspension for even 1 day to a traditional package store like Mr. Kushnerski operates here at Arlington Liquors. Finally, there's 2 additional points. I understand from seeing the license that the board issued for these premises that the license holder is actually a corporation. And we know that under the alcohol control law, that corporation has to appoint a living, breathing individual with the designation as liquor license manager, and by proper vote of the corporation and the board of directors have vested in that individual full authority and control over the business as if that individual themselves were the licensee. That individual right now, the license manager, is Alex. He will, within the next 30 days, file an application with this board to change that. He's getting off that responsibility, giving up that hat as license manager to the extent that you see fit to reconsider your penalty. And he will file that change of manager application. So you will have the opportunity to investigate and have a hearing on the qualifications of the individual he proposes to take over that responsibility and that role, and also submit to an investigation and approval by the state ABCC. And lastly, the experience with the board last June in failing this compliance check has made him aware that perhaps he should strongly consider capitalizing on his investment in Arlington after these 6 years and moving on. In plain language, maybe he should think about finding a buyer to transfer the license to. But the key to that is license has to exist. in order for it to be transferred. And that transfer application, as you well know, the buyer, the new operator, has to step in front of you to prove his qualifications to hold that license and to operate the business. So with all that in mind, we came here tonight to ask the board to reconsider that penalty that you imposed for his misconduct in failing a compliance check that was operated. Certainly, he has a lot invested, so I'm sure you can understand the human reaction, the human emotions when he stepped up to this microphone by himself without a lawyer last month. So with those points in mind, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have in regards to the pending request to reconsider the penalty.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments for Mr. Kelly? Mr. Dunn?
Thank you very much. I do have a set of questions, both from the memo and from what you said. So I guess first up is in the screenshots you're talking about. It isn't obvious to me from looking at the screenshots how they indicate that an ID was checked or what ID was proffered or what was discerned from the ID. Can you explain to me from the screenshot how that translates?
In that regard, I would have to turn the microphone over to Alex.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with the details of that system. Many times I could eat a computer better than I could operate it.
Mr. Kushnierski?
When they ask for ID, right, yeah. Yeah. And I also brought in more, actually, I could have made copies, but I have more of the same. This is just a screenshot of the, so when the clerk asks for the ID, they record the fact that they asked for the ID to that specific individual on the transaction itself. And that's what you're looking at, a list of every single time that an ID is asked for. And then we can match the date and time of this, of each individual time they asked for the ID against the camera. And we can verify who it was and what ID they presented.
So when it says quantity 1, it's like that's one ID that was checked, basically?
Right. One time the ID was checked.
All right, thank you. I guess we don't know anything about what the ID, but you can check you can look at the camera for that time if you want.
Yes.
All right.
It's a cross-reference
Yeah.
documentation.
Okay, thank you. My second question, it may be rhetorical, but maybe you can answer it. So I read the references about the ABCC's precedents about when there's a violation related to compliance about serving to someone who's under 21.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm thinking about but we also had a hearing just in November for something that was not just a compliance check. It was something in many ways more significant. Mm-hmm. And I can't help but wonder if the order of operations was reversed, if we had done the compliance check and then we'd had the second incident, that in fact there wouldn't be any precedent that was relevant. And in fact, when we look at those two things as a package, there is no precedent that the ABCC would look to that would say, this is an inappropriately harsh punishment. Because I'm definitely, I guess, just to go on a little bit more editorializing, I made the vote that I made to impose that punishment last time, not because there had been a single violation, but because of the pattern where I have not been able to convince myself that this is a well-run establishment that is worthy of holding a license.
Sure. In regards to that, I heard 3 questions, so let me try to address them one at a time, and correct me if I miss one. First of all, as to that precedent, as well as examining other decisions from the ABCC considers compliance checks to be a case category unto themselves. And the reason for that is that in a compliance check, what we basically have is the government itself enlisting an underage person for the express purpose of committing an illegal act. Now that legality got challenged all the way to the state appeals court. And it's the state appeals court that upheld the authority of government agencies who regulate alcohol, whether that be the ABCC or local licensing authorities like you, to engage in these type of operations where technical violations of the law may occur, but so long as they're conducted in compliance with written guidelines to ensure fairness, the courts indicated that you have that ability to test your licensees. But overarching in that, you have to recognize that the conduct was initiated by the government itself. And to that end, there is a sanction that may be leveled in your discretion if you choose to. However, the sanction must be, I will submit, severely restricted from the ordinary course of cases. If this were a case where the Arlington police, outside of a compliance check, happened to see youthful appearing patrons walking around the store, went in to investigate, and saw them engage in this same conduct, we would be talking about a different type of case. But the facts here are, it's a compliance check where the government initiated the conduct. And to that, because it was that type of action, it triggers these ABCC decisions that treat these type of violations as a category of cases unto themselves. As to your question about the inverted case, revocation of license is a very severe sanction, as you well know. And it is so severe because of the specific language that's buried in the alcohol control law that says when a person gets a license revoked, not only is the license taken away from them for that period of time, but they are also subject to a disqualification from holding any license for a year after that. And if they own the premises, there cannot be any other license going into those premises for the remainder of the term of the license that got revoked. Here, calendar year 2017. So I submit to you, it's fair to say that the sanction of revocation is like an atom bomb. When you drop it on someone, not only are they taken off the board and taken out of the industry, but there's a lingering afterlife that affects not only them and their ability to earn a living, but also the ability, when they own the premises, to have a tenant to simply pay rent to them so that they can meet their financial demands. So in that regard, were the cases reversed and the penalty of revocation imposed, I'm not so sure that in that situation, the first non-compliance check violation, in the absence of any aggravating circumstances such as someone being injured or killed, that the ABCC would be inclined to support revocation on those terms.
All right, thank you. I've got two more, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly.
Thank you. Why not ask for ID for everyone? Why not remove the element of judgment, which frankly the record says isn't being well applied?
Mm-hmm. So it's a fair question, and it comes down to a question whether someone as old appearing as myself would have to show an ID every time I went in to buy a case of beer. The harm here, the legal standard here, is that there cannot be a sale or delivery to a person under the age of 21. There might be a time when I looked under the age of 21, but those days are long gone by. And so the question is whether you're going to mandate that I be, as a lawful consumer, me, my contemporaries, indeed my elders, are put to the inconvenience of having to show an ID. And I understand that in time and inconvenience, it may not be that big of a deal. But you create a shift in the market dynamics. If I'm a regular patron of this facility, and I go in now and buy without having to show an ID because I'm obviously of legal age, and I suddenly start getting asked for my ID, I may make a consumer decision that the hassle is not worth it. And that there's no public safety threat, but there's a very real economic harm that's visited upon the licensee who's mandated to request my ID. That's why many times you'll see, to increase awareness, that vendors of alcohol whether they be on-premise in restaurants or package stores, will have those signs. We ID under 30, we ID under 40, but I've never seen, in my experience, and I understand it's your common sense and your life experience that controls your decision, any sign that says we ID above 40.
You'll find one above every sale in Fenway Park, and you can't purchase, I cannot purchase without an ID.
Oh, that is a tradition that has deep roots at Fenway Park.
Actually, no, it was brought in when the ABC suspended their license for what was referred to as the Good Friday Massacre when they didn't serve alcohol. So that tradition extends not quite that far back, but it extends back to when they were unable to meet the requirements of the Boston Licensing Authority.
That's my memory the last time I researched that custom, is that it was imposed by the Boston Licensing Board because of the nature of the facility, with a capacity of over 35,000 people that pick up the alcoholic beverage and then disappear into the stands. And this dates back to the days before there was service in the stands, unlike today. But certainly, a package store, even the biggest one, does not hold 35,000 people.
I do grant that it is different, but it is definitely one of the things that's been on my mind as I've been thinking about this case.
Sure.
So my last question then is, I like some of the things that I see, like some of these changes that are proposed that certainly weren't on the table when we were talking back in June. But at the same time, I'm thinking about the insurances that we heard back in November that weren't met, that the follow-through was not there. And so if you reverse positions and how would you, or let me put it a different way, how can you assure me that there's going to be follow-through? How can I be sure that some of these things are actually going to happen? Like, how do I know that he's actually going to, create this, try to create this training? How do I know that he's going to keep getting these sign-ins from the employees? How do I know that the IDs are going to be checked? I mean, frankly, there's not a lot of, there's very little trust and faith in this relationship right now.
Right. Well, you asked me for me to assure that.
Yep.
I don't know that, given my position as counsel for him, that I'm in the position that I can be a guarantor of his performance.
Convince me that.
To answer your question, though.
Thank you.
He would be happy to provide to you on a periodic basis that is acceptable to you copies of the documentation, whether that be his employee sign-in sheets as the reminder, and when you keeping in mind when you have 3 shifts, as an example, working 7 days, you're going to get 21 of those pieces of paper every week. But if you want that, I'm certain he'd be happy to provide that. Same thing with false identifications that he gets and turns over to the Arlington Police Department. If you want to be CC'd on that transmittal letter, he's happy to provide a copy to you about that. Did I miss an area of your inquiry?
I guess things like the joining the mass beverage and generating that training.
Okay. Joining MassPAC, certainly he is happy to provide you with a copy of his enrollment, his membership card. I will confess ignorance on exactly how they document membership. But he's happy to provide that to you and to report to you as to when that private training for server training is set up. And I don't know if any member of the board has had the opportunity to attend one of those, but I dare say, although I haven't spoken about this with Alex, if you wish to attend, he'll, to the extent that it's appropriate, he'll be happy to cover your tuition for that.
Already done.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. And my colleague, Mr. Gurley, it gets offered to the selectmen, but thank you for the offer.
Okay.
Thank you.
But that's the commitment he wants to make to the board and work together with you cooperatively. The compliance check, to the extent that the policy is education, he's learned his lesson.
Maybe after I'm still listening to the conversation.
I have quite a few. Do you want to go ahead of me? Because I feel like I monopolize all the time.
I have quite a few as well, so let's tick through a few of them, and if it
Well,
feels like
could I
it's-
just, on one point, since my colleague, Mr. Dunn, brought it up,
Yeah,
just follow up on that,
please.
and then I'll go back to you, and
Please.
if you touch mine, I'll cross them out. You submitted, and my colleague, Mr. Dunn, spoke about the two screenshots. I don't know if it was tab 2 or tab B. As with the previous hearing and the hearing in November, in the original hearing, if you did view the last time the manager was before us, basically his affect and demeanor was pretty consistent on all three. The reason I say that is, some of my remarks were, I question the veracity of what he claims to have done, what he promises to do in the future, and that his recognition that he understands the severity of it and is willing to deal with it. So to that end, I really questioned, is it tab 2 or tab B, the screenshot?
This screenshot, I believe, was at tab 2.
2, okay, I just want to get it
If I'm-
correct for the
Let me
record.
check my notes here, make sure I didn't give you wrong information here. Tab 1, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I just want to make sure the record's clean, if, we'll use it for the future. I just quickly perused what was submitted to us. I really question the veracity of this log. He submitted 3 days in 2017, June 29th, June 30th, and July 1st. By my Google map, that's a Thursday, a Friday, and a Saturday. On Thursday, he only logged in 8 entries between the hours of 6:52 PM and 10:38 PM. On Friday, at the end of June, June 30th, only 4 entries from the time of 3:07 PM to 5:59 PM. And on Saturday, he logged in 17 entries from the time of 6 PM to 8:27 PM. As well as looking at the other identifying columns and factors in here, I question that what this is being presented to me, where it says product list and then ID checked. And I just want you to know, just for your own knowledge, I'm also a court reporter stenographer. I worked for over 12 years for Mayor's Office of Consumer Alcohol Licensing Affairs under Commissioner Monica. I was the court reporter stenographer for Boston City Council meetings, as well as the ABCC hearings where restaurant owners and package store owners would come in because of a violation. But I won't add to the record on all that, but I could tell you very many stories. So I know you're submitting something that your client has submitted to you, and even if I took this in good faith, that what he's representing here actually did happen, and this is after he's had all these warnings, reminders, and now revocation, I really question, the reason I question the truthfulness of this document versus a document that was just made for need, and as an example, I don't think it's an actual document, because I don't accept that at the end of June, June 29th to June 30th, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, when I look at the numbers and the entries, he's open at 9 in the morning to 10 or 11 at night. One has 8 entries, one has 4, and one has 17, but they all have small windows of 2 to 3 hours. So I'll just say for myself personally, and I think, and I don't want to go through the exercise with the proponent, because I think it would just be painful, but these columns really don't match up with me. I think if I actually asked for invoices, how that was created, how they're generated, what they correlate to, with no other identifying action here, and basically having worked in various industries, to me it looks like this is an item for a product list, and somebody typed in ID checked, because, it has promotional kit column, it has, customer column. I don't accept, again, I question the veracity of this document, as I have all 3 times. So I don't know that you have any comment to that, or if Mr. Kruczewski does.
Well, I do have 3 comments to that, actually. Number 1 is that you'll notice that there are no prices in any of these fields. So if it were invoices for products, I would expect to see prices entered into this computer as well, for any number of reasons, including but not limited to the calculation of his frontline bottle price and his ultimate profit from every case of product he brought into the store. And that's absent. Second, in regards to the number of inquiries, currently, the legal standard is that he cannot sell or deliver to an underage person. What triggers the inquiry, and to be sure is left to the good faith of each employee, that's why he's having everyone retrained in server training and fake ID identification. But if someone doesn't look particularly youthful, if me and my contemporaries are the patrons in the store on a Friday night on the way home from work and later that night, then there's no reason to ask me for an ID. And so it suggests to me that during these particular dates, he had the benefit of not having waves of youthful-looking patrons walking into the store. And so therefore, it didn't trigger the need to ask for an ID, and that would account for the low number of entries on any particular date. And it's entirely consistent with buying patterns, I would submit, where Friday night may not be as busy as it once was. Saturday, particularly the Saturday before the 4th of July coming up, could be.
Yeah. But again, I think this is, in my opinion, an altered document for product list tracking. If you look at the fonts and the way the words are typed, if you look at product list, details, cost, pricing, sales history, purchase history, it's a completely different font, and only the initial letter is in uppercase. And then if you look right next to product list, which is what this is, I'm familiar with POS, point of sale information. My family's well enmeshed in the restaurant business. And I know I could do this myself. It's a completely different font and everything's in caps. So I think this was something just created to prove a point, but I don't think it proves it. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Mahan. I have a few things I wanted to, I also have some editorial comment and then a number of questions. Mr. Kelly, you referenced, age-restricted product and why, and this is why we consider this so important, that this is an age-restricted product. And,
no denying that, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. And in the memo, we make clear that the regulatory authority's role should be to educate the license holder. But I feel that this board, as well as our colleagues on the Board of Health, have actually done this several times now, tried to educate the license holder on the importance of checking IDs and on age-restricted products. So, as the draft decision actually notes, there were 2 violations already on tobacco around age-related, age-restricted product and sales to underage individuals. And then this, well, it's the first compliance check failure for alcohol. It's actually the third violation on age-restricted product sale of this establishment that we or our colleagues on the Board of Health have determined. Additionally, as I think you know, when we met here in November, the previous incident, that related to another controlled substance and a violation of marijuana laws. And at that time, it's very clear, if you look at the record, the board was very clear in trying to educate at that point as well about the importance of caution and care and the privilege of holding a license to sell a controlled or age-restricted product. I had a lot of questions about the screenshots too, so I'm not going to beat that horse. Quite honestly, I mean, the screenshots actually did not have a lot of meaning to me, and I work with computer systems all day. So I think that really would require some clarification and some footnoting as to what exactly we're looking at here. I also question what the without the universal check, I understand the economic aspects, but without the universal check that Mr. Dunn referenced, how meaningful this system actually would be in maintaining a track. Now, in regards to false IDs and turning them over, I have a couple of questions. How often was the license holder intending to turn over IDs to the police department?
In regards to frequency of turning those over, he's
Yes.
completely open to guidance from the board on that. Whether that
Okay.
be weekly, bi-weekly, once a month, it's entirely up to you. He's totally open to hearing the board's concerns as to what works best for the board and for the police department.
Okay.
He's built, the key respectfully submit is that he has built this system in response to the concerns heard by him at the board meeting in June.
Okay, thank you. Do the policies of the establishment include any procedures for employees to recognize false identification?
They are. Primarily, that's going to come as a component of the server training, hence the importance and the desire for not only Alex, but all the employees to go through an updated server training. It seems that every time the Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles announces that they've come out with the most up-to-date, technologically unduplicatable, uncounterfeitable, if that's a word, license, that within 2 weeks you're going to see counterfeit licenses being used by underage. They are the demographic of the individual who has appealed to secure that type of false ID is far in advance of any of us, I respectfully submit. And you couple their technological knowledge with their initiative and desire, and the best we can do is to build systems in place to ask for them.
Okay, great, thank you. How many employees are there at Arlington Liquors? 4 employees? So covering 3 shifts per day times 7. 3 shifts? 2 shifts. 2 shifts per day, 7 days a week. And how often are there new employees brought on?
When's the last time you brought on a new employee?
Oh, can you go to the,
Yeah, if you
I'm
could come to the
sorry, I
mic,
didn't mean
just,
Yeah.
guess we have to transcribe.
It's rare. The last employee was about 4 to 5 years ago that I hired.
4 or 5 years ago?
Yep.
Okay. So how long had the employee who actually served the minor in this incident actually been with you?
He's been with me, I would say, I brought him over when I bought the store from another location, so over 6 years.
Over 6 years, okay. I only ask that because, you know, one of the measures that's actually proposed here is that new employees would be paired up with veteran employees to try to minimize the possibility of incidences of underage sales. And to me, that also is a somewhat meaningless proposition because the veteran employee of 6 years was the one who had actually done this. That's editorializing. We can disagree. We can disagree on that, but I just want to point that out, that is an issue for me. I think you already addressed this issue of the sheets being signed, the reminder sheets at the beginning of every shift. I will note that these reminder sheets do ask employees to ID everyone, but the notice at the front of the door does not
That's true.
notice that.
Well, to the extent he's, again, this is a dialogue that we're having, and he's
Yeah.
completely open to any suggestions the board may have, whether that be that sign at the front door, we ID everyone,
Yeah.
to stem the tide without a actual legal obligation to do so,
Yeah,
which creates that economic imbalance
yeah, yeah.
and that competitive disadvantage. But as far as signage and a maze between the front door and the beer cooler and the
Sure.
cash register, I think Alex is completely open to that.
Sure. Just the last question. I think I know the answer to this, but if my latest recollection of the situation is correct, Mr. Kushnerski does not own this premise, correct?
I don't believe he owns this premises. I think he's a tenant with a lease for a term of years.
Okay.
It's my understanding.
Those are all the questions I had. You said that you had some more.
I actually crossed out everything but 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
I guess I'll try to piggyback on what's already been said. In town council, if there's any question that I shouldn't be asking, if you could let me know, and if town council advises me that, then I'm going to withdraw it. I think I heard approximately 4 employees,
Yes.
2 shifts per
That's the
day.
statement Alex made, is 4
7
employees.
days per week. If I'm permitted to ask, does Mr. Konerski issue these employees W-2 forms, 1099, or are they what you would be called paid under the table?
Ms. Vaughn, I think you can ask the question.
If I may be heard on that, I'd suggest that that may not be necessarily appropriate or have any bearing on the pending request for reconsideration.
Could you ask your client if he's willing to answer that question? And my follow-up question would be, it sounds like they're full-time employees to me. If there's 4 people working 2 shifts, 7 days a week, are they also under law receiving health insurance benefits? So those would be my 2 questions, if you may, ask your client. And if any advice you want to give him, it's up to him whether he wants to follow it or not. But that would be, because I'm questioning a lot what I'm hearing.
All the employees are W-2 employees, and everybody has declined to purchase health insurance through the umbrella that covers the liquor store. And they get their health insurance in other places.
Okay. I know you referenced the monthly meetings. I'm assuming since this incident happened, at least 1 or 2 have occurred. I'm wondering if, in the packet of materials that you both have, if of those 1 or 2 monthly meetings, if I could see an agenda, a sign-in sheet, and/or any materials handed out?
To the extent that they exist, we'd be happy to provide you with them. But certainly with a small business like this, and it's my recollection, even in a small state agency, sometimes the formality that is required to comply with the open meeting law by municipal officials like yourself aren't necessarily followed in private small business or, quite frankly, with a state agency.
Well, my concern is we're under a microscope and so many events have happened. He unfortunately has brought himself to that level, and it's been a past and current indication.
Sure.
And again, I question, frankly, each time this applicant has appeared before myself individually, I really have felt personally insulted and really had to carefully pick my words and not say what I really want to, and say things like, I question your veracity, I question your credibility, statements about falsehoods. So,
Well, in regards to that documentation, as I indicated, this is a dialogue with Alex and the board. So to the extent that it would be helpful for the board for him to adopt that formality and paperwork, I'm certain he'd be open to it in regards to the monthly meetings.
and I just want to give your client a chance, not that he has to. I'm getting a sense that he feels he may have something that's responsive to my request, and he doesn't have to. If you want to ask him about that?
No. I'm sorry? Oh.
Since the last meeting, I've personally sat down, not as a group, but individually with each employee, and went through our procedures, and we have copies of this we can give to the board as well.
To the extent that it's appropriate. It wasn't in the materials beforehand.
But I
Certainly
prepared for
present the
remarks.
board with whatever materials you like, and we'll just have to take them for inclusion in the public record, so.
Yes.
They're copies.
You can provide it to Ms. Crabel.
Okay. So what you're showing us is a
It's something that I sat down.
copied out policy?
Yep, is
Okay.
our policies. And then at the end of it, I had each employee sign
Okay,
that, they've been trained.
okay.
And
Is there a
also-
date, I apologize, is there a date on there?
There was no date, but it was done about a week after
Okay.
last meeting. And also, just to address really quickly, the remarks that you made, very observant. This check ID was actually put into the computer as a PLU in the product list, because that was the only way for us to make it appear directly on the register at the time of the ID check, so that we would have a reference point. And also, a receipt could be printed to show that an ID was checked, and it was created as a product in the product list.
Thank you. I still stand by the original on that. And then,
So as he indicated, he's what I heard is he's trying to adapt a traditional POS system into a computerized documentation of identification requests after hearing the concerns from the board last month.
And I'll just, as my colleagues know, for their edification, my family is very well-versed in the POS system, as I am also, and you're all familiar with what restaurants and chains I'm referring to. That's not how, there is a feature under the POS system that if you do want to use it to check IDs. I've never heard of any major restaurant, package store, if that feature is available, which tracks all the correct information and prompts out exactly what they need to put in there versus tailoring and editorializing the product list feature. So again, I just question, you and I will disagree on that.
I understand.
I'm just telling you that.
And I want to reemphasize to the board that we're here to have a dialogue with the board, and to the extent that you may have a superior experience and understanding of the POS system that could be directly used with a add-on or a tweak. Computer programming is not my forte. Alex is open to that dialogue.
Okay.
He's here because he's willing and wants to show to the board that the message has been heard loud and clear and he's learned his lesson.
Okay, and I guess my last remarks would be, my understanding is that we have the final decision before us with the two amendments, additions that town council highlighted, that what we're talking about right now is your request for a vote of reconsideration, which I can tell you I certainly would not be making or supporting. The reason why is, I would encourage you, and you probably already have, but maybe go back and relook at the hearing that we had on November 14th, 2016, and listen to Mr. Kishnerski's testimony that night, as well as conversation amongst the board. My personal opinion, I had the same sense as I did the last time that Mr. Kishnerski appeared before us, that he wasn't taking anything that we said serious, didn't feel it was a serious matter. It involved an incident where the police responded and a derivative of Naxalone was administered. And because, the individual would not admit to what you would have to ingest or take, that the derivative Naxalone would be effective. And that's all in the police report, so you can look at that. But there was marijuana found there, to which he said, and I won't go into it, but he went into his medical history, but I want to be careful with HIPAA. He cited a problem for that, and I really question that, as one of my very close relatives has the affliction he claimed to have, and that would be contraindicated for what he said he had. Because that particular affliction that he brought up, one of the most common factors is the reason why you get this organ infected the way you do is because of alcohol and or substance abuse. It's broken down so much it can't be effective. So it would be contraindicated to, in my opinion and my personal knowledge with it, that's why marijuana would be on the premises without a medical marijuana card. And I will say, and my colleagues will probably remember, that when we had the hearing back in November, they respected my concerns. I felt we were really going very light and bending over backwards for Mr. Kishnerski. I didn't really place any credibility to the statements he was making, that he learned his lesson. He's taking this process seriously, which I never feel that he has, and continue to feel that way. And I remember saying, similar to sometimes other events, I said, I'm going to, for the sake of unanimity, even though I'm not in favor of, in my opinion, quote-unquote, going light, not throwing the book at him. And I said, the reason I'm willing to do that is I can guarantee you, within a year, Mr. Kuchnerski will be before us, having learned no lessons, and be just as arrogant and ignorant as he is at this meeting back in November, and he didn't go a year. So I'm not in favor, and his statements about the fake IDs, I mean, I'm a court reporter, Commonwealth of Mass, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and very well versed. If you confiscate a fake ID, you call the police department, they write an incident report. He claimed at the microphone he's collecting anywhere from 2 to 8 fake IDs a month. They're all Connecticut IDs, that they're manufactured here in Arlington, and he knows the particular individual who is the operator of that fake ID site, allegedly, here in Arlington. And those were the kind of statements that really, kind of rile me up, because I listened very carefully, because to me, that's an out-and-out falsehood. So, and as far as the atom bomb example that you gave, yes, if he owned, as one of my colleagues pointed out, yes, if he owned this premises, that would be an atom bomb for him. But to me, this license is a privilege, and he doesn't see it this way. I think he just sees it as this is something we have to give him, and he can do with it as he will. And if the license hearing made its way through ABCC and it was revoked, then that means that license would revert back to this board, and would have to go through, if the board so deemed fit, to start the process, and if anybody wanted to apply for that. So I'm now trying to make a case to my colleagues, but I don't want to cut anybody off. I am, in terms of the two motions that we could make, I am in favor of approving the decision as drafted by Attorney Heim with the 2 corrections amendments. I have worked over at ABCC myself, and as the stenographer, court reporter, I've seen everything over there. I understand, and you're representing your client very well in terms of, failing a compliance check for alcohol. This is a compilation of issues, and I did say earlier in the evening, I indicated to my colleagues, there were some other information from other town boards and evidence that I thought I would like to be in here, but then talking with town council and hearing the pros and cons, I feel it would be best fit that hopefully when this decision goes to the ABCC, that's where it will be, that's where you provide all of that information, and you can flesh everything out. And if, as you say, I've been there when they've revoked, and sometimes, usually if it's a first-time revocation, it's been a serious crime. Somebody was fatally, somebody was killed or close to it. But I've seen people 2 times come in, and it's been one serious issue. And we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I don't accept your argument in terms of how this will play out. I would like it to go to the ABCC with our decision that Attorney Heim crafted, because even if the outcome were most favorable to your client, I won't go into what I think in terms of the legal side of it, but I think we would have a much better discussion about that. But I also think that it would give this board sort of an extra added strength if they didn't revoke the license, to really give some very, very serious mandated guidelines that we really could hold. I'm not willing to take him at his word anymore. So,
Ms. Mahoney, are you putting that in the form of a motion? We do have, I think we have some more discussion of the board. But
is it okay if I put a motion to approve the Arlington Liquors, DBA Alexander Liquors decision with the 2 modifications by Attorney Heim?
Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay. Is there further discussion?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
I have another question too, but after.
Of course. Let Mr. Byrne have it.
Of course.
So, what I just heard, Diane, is that you would like to go through the process, and if the ABCC rejects it, to come back and go through this all again, and have, and implement and go through this, repenalize the licensee?
I'm afraid that if I tell you exactly what I think, I'm kind of tipping my hand.
But that's what you just said.
No,
is that
it would be
you like them to come back here after the ABCC, If they do not accept the revocation, you would like to come back and go through this process again, is what you just said.
That if it went through, ABCC didn't accept the revocation, they would issue orders and guidelines for sort of a penultimate actions that we could take that also would be backed up legally in terms of having gone through that process and getting that. Basically, they have to say, we're not accepting your decision, but here's what we'll do for you, because this is an egregious issue, and then they'll, so, but I don't want to say too much, because I'm tipping.
If I could ask the council
Yeah.
for one clarification on this point. If this goes forward, if we go forward as we did vote at the last meeting and accept the draft decision as amended, and it is remanded to us, is there another hearing phase, or is it simply
So it, Mr.
sanction phase?
Mr. Chair, I think what's most likely to happen, in my opinion, is that the ABCC would likely, given the facts and circumstances here, corroborate that a violation has taken place, and the question before it would be whether or not it was going to support the board's penalty. What I've seen happen in ABCC decisions, although I admit that there's a decent amount of variation, is that there's some sort of remand on the issue of what penalty should be issued. Penalty not to exceed X amount of days suspension, or I suppose it's within their power to provide, some specific guidance beyond that. But if there was a revocation, they might say, we remand for the board to mete out a suspension not to exceed 14 days or 30 days, or whatever the ABCC deems appropriate based on the record before them.
So we take up the consideration of penalty, but we do
Of the
not go
penalty.
through a new hearing phase.
Only if we lose. I don't think we're going to lose.
Exactly. No,
Jeez.
I understand that. I understand
Okay.
that. If it's qualified, okay. Mr. Brown. So
I'm not, as I did last time, I am not going to support the vote to revoke this license. I think, we all take this very seriously. Of course I do. I think the last meeting, I recommended a very severe punishment that I think fit this whole, what's been playing out here in front of us. And we're talking about, a potential new licensee if this is revoked, or, this license does come up. I think we're telling businesses that, in the long run, that we are, we had a very frank discussion here today. I thought I learned a lot about what's transpired since our last month's meeting. I think it is, being taken more seriously than before. I liked a lot of the recommendations that were brought before us today. And I think that it is it's an appropriate to amend this penalty to reflect that we are willing to work with business owners who, do take this seriously and offer a slate of recommendations that I think, are appropriate next steps. So I know there's a motion on the table. I won't be supporting it, and I would, if I could, I would move to reconsider.
Mr. Dunn?
Just one question first. So when Mr. Curo was talking about the 3 age violations, your client was shaking his head no, as if he disagreed. And that confused me.
I didn't see it, so I don't have a
Let me
understanding on
phrase it more
that.
directly. Does your client agree that there are 3 age violations that
Well-
that are in the record?
Well, I understand that the board has already found, or has from the Board of Health, for the 2 age issues with tobacco sales that are in the public record, both on the Board of Health as well as in the draft decision for this board that was posted on Friday. And this compliance check on the alcohol would make it 3.
Does your client
So I
acknowledge
think
that?
the facts are the facts. And the Board of Health matters have reached a final adjudication, as has the prior alcohol sanction imposed by this board. You acknowledge it in the draft decision, that after that June hearing, Alex immediately closed for 5 days. So he has taken the lesson, paid the penalty, understands the hurt that comes with that sanction, and he has closed that matter, as has the Board of Health on the 2 tobacco, from my understanding. I will confess not looking closely at the Board of Health proceedings.
So I'm going to take from that answer, which is well taken, but nonetheless, you're declining to ask him whether or not he acknowledges 3 of 8 violations.
Well, if it would be helpful
It would be.
to the board, I'd be happy to.
It would be very helpful to me because it helps me understand whether or not he is in fact taking this seriously.
I understand the question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. I do acknowledge 3. I must have been responding to something else.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
If this had been our last hearing last month, I would not have supported the motion to revoke. And I definitely was happy to second Mrs. Mahan's motion for the point of discussion. But there's no reason to, in my mind, for me to enforce this punishment that I don't think necessarily would be appropriate, as in, this comes back to the order of operations thing that I mentioned before. So given that Mr. Greeley isn't here, perhaps perhaps a little bit more, the way forward is to table this until he returns and we can reconsider the penalty. I don't know if the town council has any opinions on that. I have a few other thoughts about penalty, if you'd like me to, unless you want to pause and consider tabling, or whether you'd want to hear my thoughts.
Okay, continue.
So, one of the things that I said last month that hasn't changed is that I'm still not convinced that this license holder can run the business effectively. Some of the things that I am interested in seeing, perhaps in an agreement related to the penalty, is finding a new manager and removing the current license holder from the day-to-day operation and replacing with someone that, and I would say the other thing that I hadn't necessarily appreciated was the effect that the impact that revocation could have on the potential sale of the property, of the property, and of the lease and the business. And it isn't my intent to prohibit this type of business from happening at that particular location. My intent is to have this business be run in a way that's responsible and effective, I guess. And so I would say, so in some ways I'd say that the core things that I said a month ago in June, I still believe to be true, but at the same time, the dialogue today opens up a couple other ways forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dunn. I would say that this appears to leave us in a bit of a stalemate right now, because I actually would support Ms. Mahan's motion. So regardless of whether we table or not, we don't actually have a majority, it would appear, to adopt the draft decision as amended. So I don't know if you want to withdraw the motion itself and we table until we actually have 5, where we can actually take action one way or another, because I think even if we withdrew it and put a motion on the table to reconsider, we don't have.
I'd be happy
Votes
to
for
do
that.
that if I can just make one point. It is not our responsibility, purview, or interest in, because I pretty much know what's happening, what's going to happen here, and Attorney Learned Counsel spoke to it at the microphone. It is not my concern that this individual be allowed to keep the license so that when he sells his assets and his business to a building he does not own, and I'd be shocked that he's not already in conversations for that. which to me, again, is an insult to the process. He's not doing it for the right reasons. He's doing it to make sure, and it's not my concern that, you know, he gets the most money in his pocket as he possibly could. And it wouldn't preclude another viable, responsible applicant at that location, or if someone, I know there are 2 people in the Heights, reputable business people, who would love to have the opportunity. And I heard loud and clear, just my personal opinion, that he's just trying to keep this afloat with the least penalty possible, so he can get as much as he can for what he considers an asset versus a privilege. So I'd be happy to table it, but I'm hoping that, you know, we can all kind of ruminate on that and think about that, about what our responsibility is. And again, I don't believe anything he says. I saw the head shaking no, and I don't think he was, in my opinion, having been in court hearings, I don't think he was shaking his head no that those particular violations, tobacco, occurred. I think he was shaking his head because he really doesn't think that's a violation. He thinks this board and the Board of Health, in my opinion, is just really being silly about this. And so, I mean, I watch, that's what I got from that. So I don't think he was attesting that, oh no, I didn't have to. To me, he was, again, not respectful and acknowledging what the issues are before him. So I will withdraw my motion to approve the final decision, and I will second Mr. Dunn's motion to table.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Dunn. Yes.
Can we ask town council whether or not given that we're in a hearing process, is there any trigger, does this table causing any clock problems or anything like that?
Mr. Chairman, may I? I'd like to garner some agreement with council for Mr. Krasnerski that tabling this for the purpose of the reconsideration that the license holder is seeking is mutually agreeable to both parties, because I don't, while I don't anticipate from Mr. Kelly, I don't want there to be any argument that for some reason this decision has been unreasonably delayed, or that the board's initial vote is somehow, leaving his client in the lurch by having this reconsideration and a subsequent discussion. So I think if the board wants to entertain a motion to table, I'd like to get the agreement of counsel for the license holder that that they don't feel that this is prejudicing them in any way and are not going to assert any timeliness objections.
To add to town council's request, I would respectfully submit that while there may be statutory timelines for local boards such as yourself to make a decision yes or no on a license application, there is no such time limit on an enforcement sanction decision such as this. So I'm happy to accede to the request of town council. And the fact that the hearing was conducted in June and you are engaged in a deliberation as far as what the written decision, your statement of reasons will articulate, and indeed you appear to be reconsidering the sanction originally voted on at the June hearing.
Not me.
No, you as a board, not individual to any single member.
Right now, we're split.
Understood.
You don't have it yet.
No, that's, didn't mean to suggest that I have anything other than the opportunity to speak to you tonight.
Mr. Cure, may I also ask one other thing? I think if the board is going to table any discussion, I would also respectfully request that the license holder have a specific proposal. There's been a lot of things that have been discussed here, things that are already being done, things that have some dimension of parameters filled out, but there are a few things that I think have not been addressed, such as what level of suspension would the license holder agree to without and waiving a right of appeal, those types of issues, as well as maybe putting down a little bit more. I think we'd all like to be provided with copies of the policy as modified by Mr. Krasnerski, perhaps copies of things like the package associations, training materials, anything that would further elucidate the conversation so that we'd have a very specific proposal to say, we're asking you to reconsider, this is what's on the table from our perspective, so that there can be a more efficient reckoning of whether or not the board is going to ultimately reconsider, because right now the only motion is to table. Does that sound?
I understand the request, and as I said, this is a dialogue with the board, so to the extent that we can provide further specificity that would be of information and assistance to the board, we're happy to do that. Something as simple as, Alex has false IDs. They're ready to go to the police department. Who would you like the letter to be addressed to? Do you want a copy of the transmittal letter? If you think that the transmittal letter with the fake IDs to the Arlington Police Department should be amplified in some way, please share that too. This is a cooperative process where he wants to, as I say, work with you to show you that he's taking this, the lesson is learned.
Mr. Kira?
Yeah, Mr. Dunn.
So recognizing that I'm one vote and that I'm not, and I am very interested, as town council suggested, in understanding what the new policy is, in seeing it in writing and understanding how it's being passed out. I share some of the concerns that Mrs. Mahan brought up, I find it very surprising that there only be 4 IDs checked on a Friday night. I would be very interested in seeing that the enforcement is, and the actual operation of the business is changing, I'd be very interested in understanding who the new manager would be and what the relationship would be with the new manager and Mr. Kuchnerski. And if that, I believe in your initial statement, you said one of the things was whether or not they're finding out who that person would be, seeing that application, all of those things would go a long way towards persuading me as a single member of this board to change my vote.
Understood. And certainly that's, as I indicated during my remarks, that's certainly something that we could have on file within the next 30 days, and to the extent that it's helpful to the board, we will expedite that so you have it on file as soon as possible. Change of manager is probably, as I'm sure Council Heim will tell you, one of the more simple process-wise applications.
Ordinarily.
Yes, correct. It's subject, but it's going to at least present to you the ultimate question on the substance. Do you approve of this individual to be the licensed manager? And if, for some reason, you decide it's not, then Alex makes a decision to find someone with your input you believe would be more suitable. As I say, that's the dialogue that Alex wants to engage in with the board right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to table.
I actually don't believe I formally made it.
Oh.
I move that we table to a date to be set with by a combination of the chair, town council, and license holders council. Because I think is our next meeting August 7th? I'm not sure.
It may be moved to
Yeah,
right now it
exactly.
is August 7th.
I hesitate to specify it specifically for August 7th because I'm not
That's why
sure
we
that that's
table it.
adequate preparation. So I'm going to defer to the chair to set a specific date.
Fair
That's
enough.
my motion.
Fair enough. Is there a second on Mr. Dunn's motion? Seconded by Mr. Byrne. Any further discussion on this, Ms. Mahan?
Two things, starting tomorrow and until we have our next hearing, can we see the actual POS ID data spreadsheet, ID check, that I know is on that POS system that has all the relevant columns? And if he can do that when the business is in operation, and have that for us at the next meeting, so that it's not this, because I don't believe any of this information here. Because he's saying he's doing it now and he's learned his lesson, so I'd like to see that. That you can go right into the POS system, they have a specific category for checking IDs and all the columns you need to fill out. So I'd like to see that, because he says he's doing it, he says this is it, and it's not. And then the second thing, in terms of the fake IDs, which he says he's collected 2 to 8 a month for the past 2 years. Number one, you shouldn't be holding on to them. You're supposed to, having gone through the training that the Board of Selectmen went, and it's like every 3-4 years we're due up again. I know Mr. Greeley was there, shows us how to check IDs with the machine, and Mr. Sullivan was there. It also says that you need to immediately surrender any false IDs that you collect, as well as this data you're supposed to collect along with that. And all you have to do is bring it down to the police station, they'll fill out an incident report, and as I said at the previous meeting, if he's collecting 2 to 8 fake IDs a month, mostly from Connecticut, from an operation here in Arlington, you should, do the math. Number one, you should not be hanging on to them. You should, it shouldn't be, oh, what does the board want me to do? Under the training you had to go through, which is the basic training that we all got, you're directed that you need to contact and/or deliver them to the police station. So that would be my recommendation. I can't require him to do it, but he claims he's aware of that minimal training that we all get, so, and I'm getting tired of hearing about these fake IDs, alternative fakes, so, that's it.
If I may, for my own individual clarity, you have me at an advantage or disadvantage in regards to knowledge of the POS system. Is that with a particular brand of POS? I know there's several different brands out there available. Is that a universal component available?
That particular feature is, what it is, I don't think people, depending on, there's really 3 basic POS software packages out there. And each of the 3, when you purchase them, they basically provide the 8 to 10, everybody knows what this is. And each one of them has a spreadsheet and a format and a screen for product list, keeping in track of your alcohol. When you check IDs, that's already on there. The reason why you might pick one over the other is they say, but if you pay this, you have this kind of a business. So it's included in every point of sale.
Okay.
Software package.
Thank you for that clarity
And it
to
will
me.
aid the information he's supposed to, invoice number, but I won't go there. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have the motion on the table by Mr. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Byrne. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, it is tabled, and we will work out with council and yourself.
Thank you,
Take it
Mr.
up.
Chairman. Thank you, through you, to all the members of the board.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our next order of business. Citizens Open Forum. Can I read the statement?
Oh, here,
I
right.
don't know if there's anybody, I don't actually know if there is anyone here for Citizens Open.
She came up and Mr. Morgan, and she signed in, but she spoke on Spring Street.
Okay.
On Spring Road.
Okay, there's no one here for Citizens Open Forum, no need to read the statement. So, request for approval, Grove Street crosswalk, referral to TAC. Mr. Chapdelaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually brought to my attention through the chair was concern about high school students coming to and from the high school, cutting through the DPW yard and by the practice field and crossing Grove Street, and also going over to use the tennis courts on Grove Street, crossing the street, without there being a clear marked safe location for crossing. After discussing it with the chair, decided that it would be appropriate to ask that the board refer that the Transportation Advisory Committee study if there was an appropriate location for a crosswalk. I did have a brief discussion with the DPW director, Mike Rademacher, about it. Mid-block crosswalks are always a little challenging, so there isn't a readily apparent area. Perhaps at Dudley Street, where Dudley Street intersects with Grove Street, could be an area, but without saying any more, if the board would be willing, referring this to TAC for a study, analysis, and recommendation, I think would be an appropriate next step.
Yeah. So moved. Moved by Mr. Byrne. Seconded by Mr. Dunn. I just want to add just a little bit of, just one little clarifying point on this. I think this is impacting actually a lot of students walking to the high school who are coming from Summer Street and beyond, because when you cross underneath the railway bridge, there is no sidewalk on the high school side, so they're forced to walk on the far side, and if they're crossing over towards the practice field, there's no marked area for that, so. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Request for approval, stop sign at Vetter Road and Concord Turnpike. Mr. Chapdelaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if the board's had the opportunity to take a look at the memorandum that was provided by Mike Rademacher, this actually came in via phone call through my office and was referred to Mr. Rademacher. And we have this situation at the end of Vetter Road where it intersects with Concord Turnpike, where a resident called with expressing great concern about witnessing either numerous close calls or even several accidents at that area. And you can see in the photo, it is marked that no left turn is allowed, and then across the way, it's a little hard unless you blow it up, you can see there is a one-way sign and a do not enter sign, but it's after you would have already crossed through that intersection. You then see by comparison a little further up the turnpike, where Rhinecliff intersects, you see that there's that stop sign with the one-way pointing in the allowable direction of traffic above the stop sign. So we're simply asking that the board approve that DPW implement that stop sign in one-way combination to avoid any confusion about being able to go the wrong way up the Concord Turnpike to get to Pleasant Street.
Move approval?
Second?
Moved by Ms. Mahan, second by Mr. Byrne. Mr. Dunn.
It feels like every other time I've looked at that intersection as trying to evaluate the valuation of the right of way that we were talking. I wasn't looking at the roads.
I saw something simmering, I was wondering.
Okay, any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It is approved.
Thank you.
Okay, request for approval, electric vehicle parking designation, Russell Common Lot, Mr. Chapdelaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this has been a long time in the making. The Parking Implementation and Governance Committee, probably over a year ago or more now, did vote to recommend that we designate several spots as electrical vehicle charging stations in the Russell Common Lot as part of the overall parking, Arlington Center parking management strategy. So in the FY17 capital budget, there was $15,000 allocated for purchase and installation of electric vehicle charging stations. So using that money, as well as applying for a state grant that could buy down the cost, we have priced out in our, with approvals tonight, we'll begin to implement 2 electric vehicle charging stations in the Russell Common Lot. So what I would be asking for tonight is both a vote to designate the location of the 2 spots as demonstrated on the map in the memorandum that's been provided to the board, as well as voting to adopt the language as proposed that's underlined under Section F, Article 5, Section 15D, subsection F of the Traffic Rules and Orders, which would simply read, "No person shall stop, stand, or park any vehicle other than an electric vehicle actively utilizing an electric vehicle charging station within any parking space marked or signed as reserved for electric vehicle parking only while charging." This is so we can ticket the car. There was otherwise no ability for the parking control officers or the police to be able to ticket a car inappropriately parked in an electric vehicle charging spot. One other important detail, we have not yet completely worked out how much we will be charging, but this installation does include this charge point interface, so that we will be charging for electricity. We would recommend that we think the easiest thing to do is to charge for parking and electricity both via charge point, so that someone doesn't have to use a card at the station and then also walk over to the parking station and then come back and pay and display. So no matter what, we would put in the base meter rate of 50 cents an hour, and then we're trying to decide if we want to charge for blocks of time or actual metered usage, while still being clear about how much people are paying. Not to get too much into the weeds, some cars pull more amperage than other cars, so a flat rate benefits the cars who pull more amperage than the cars who pull less amperage, but we're trying to find an equitable yet easy to understand way to charge people for the electricity.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Dunn, second by Mr. Burns.
In the spirit of full disclosure, I plan on buying an electric vehicle within a year, so I'll be taking advantage of this.
I have a question.
Proof in
I've already
concept.
test driven one, but I don't think I'm ready to pull a trigger. Go ahead.
I have a question, not about my colleague's possible pending purchase.
I'm on the list for a Tesla Model 3.
It may be in, it may be in here, and I missed it, Mr. Town Manager, and I see that you talked about EVFC, whatever it is, and getting the CT 4000 from ChargePoint. And it seems to me what it speaks to in there is basically, it's an app and oversees or facilitates, the transaction and all that. My question would be, just in terms of, has it been designated that, if these stations need to be repaired? I'm just thinking of, have we done everything? Sometimes, you get the best brand new fire hydrant and you find out only one company makes it and you're gonna pay. So my question would be twofold, like in the wintertime, who would be responsible if we have like a crazy snow? And number 2, maintenance and upkeep.
Mr. Chairman, may I? So the first answer is, we would have to have DPW plow it or shovel it out, just like other infrastructure in the parking lot, so that would be on us. For maintenance.
That would be incorporated, you have that as part of the plan. I don't want people saying, I can never plug in, the snow's 10 feet high, so that's already,
Yeah, so what we'll have to do is make sure, instead of pushing the snow in towards the bank as they normally would, that in those spots, they push up towards the Jefferson Cutter House so that it's clear. For maintenance and upkeep, we're planning on, as part of this relationship with ChargePoint, buying the extended warranty, so that any damage or repairs that need to, or maintenance that needs to be performed can be part of the extended warranty and maintenance plan.
okay. And that, my big thing was a concern, I can hear people,
Sure.
so thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is unanimous.
Thank you.
Request for approval, parking benefit district, Mr. Chapdelaine.
Busy.
So related to these parking efforts in Arlington Center, and also very much related to significant discussion during this town meeting season, was the approval at town meeting of the ability to establish a parking benefit district. So part of that is the board needs to vote upon the geographic boundaries of that parking benefit district. And then also, this is more of an endorsement I'm asking for tonight. We need to go back to town meeting in the fall and ask for the actual ability to spend parking benefit district money. So the first thing I'd be asking for the board's approval of tonight is the map as put before the board tonight, labeled Parking Benefits District. This has gone through a few iterations with the Parking Implementation and Governance Committee and has been approved by the PIGC to be referred to you for approval. The second item are a list of the Parking Benefit District priority investments. What I'm really looking for is for endorsement of these priorities, so that we can, if you do agree, we'll then begin to get more firm costs than what we have as estimated costs here. Probably come back to the board once we've firmed up pricing, after the PIGC is prioritized based on pricing, what we want to do in year one, and then come back for your approval on that. But I want to make sure before we move forward with pricing these out that the board agrees with these recommendations.
Okay, done.
I in general do agree. I did have one thing that, and this just happened because I was parking in the municipal lot on Sunday, and I happened to notice that the meter that was closest to the Jefferson Cutter House, like the screen there, is fading pretty significantly, and it's become problematic to read. And obviously, we replaced this meters not too long ago. Yeah. And I'm wondering, so this is a bit of it, like I meant to put this, I was gonna put this on your, I was gonna talk to you about it outside the meeting and say, hey, could you look into this? But now we're here in the meeting, so I'm doing it. But more to the point, how do meter replacement and stuff like that fit into this list?
So we've actually budgeted money aside from the parking benefit district money for meter maintenance and repairs.
Okay.
So we should be able to pay for fixing that out of parking revenues that go into the parking fund that town meeting approved last fall, without impacting what we're talking about here in the parking benefit district.
Thank you. Move approval or are we endorsing both or are we approving one?
I would ask for an approval of the geographic boundaries and endorsement of the priorities.
So moved.
Second, one question.
Moved by Mrs. Dunn, second by Ms. Mahan. Ms. Mahan.
Just to kind of put on your plate, platter, whatever. I know right now you have spoken about sort of some short-term improvements to Broadway Plaza, and I think that's one of the, well, about the same, except one other. I'm assuming that so many people had pointed out Broadway Plaza and with different restaurants with the outdoor seating, which everybody is fans of, but people have said to me, you know, the actual design and sort of impediment in the middle of it, that really should be redesigned. I'm assuming that's something further on down the road, if at all?
Yeah, so really separate from the benefit district, but a great point. What we have discussed, myself, the planning department have discussed with Marie and the team here in the Selectmen's office, is asking the board, probably maybe at the next meeting or in September, to put a deadline for when outdoor seating permits have to be filed, so that both departments and then the board ultimately can review them comprehensively. What we've done to date is approved them, and they've sort of piggybacked on one another and resulted in perhaps sort of a situation that we weren't completely comfortable with. So we want to look at them comprehensively so that we make sure that there's pedestrian accessibility everywhere we need it to be. On top of that, we have definitely noticed we need to be more aggressive in making sure that the restaurants actually put their seats out where they
say
started
they're going-
putting their seats
exactly,
out. So that's another effort that we have to, I won't name the restaurant, but we were actually out on Broadway Plaza a couple weeks ago, Mary Ann, Mike Rademacher.
I honestly didn't know that from any of you all,
And we
but
had a- yeah,
I've gotten, and I think it's a great idea. I'm not trying to discourage it, but I'm confident that you're aware of it, as well as the Selectmen's office, and that's being addressed. It's just that, literally, I get calls from people, come down right now and look. And when I can, I do it, but sometimes I can't. But thank you, you answered on that.
You're welcome. Any further discussion? No. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All opposed? It is unanimous.
Thank you.
Next one was an item I asked to put on the agenda, maybe a little bit late, maybe not. I'm just asking for the board's approval for me to sign onto this statement we're still in regarding the our commitment to the goals of the Paris Agreement. I gave you a statement. It's actually a snapshot from June 20th. Many other cities around the country that have signed on to this statement, as well as major companies and universities and such. It's in the spirit, I think, of the statement that the manager himself put out the day that the announcement was made that nationally we would be pulling out, and really kind of highlighting, hey, we're doing a lot here on the local level, and I think that you see that on the local and the state level. Just as an aside, about 2 weeks ago, the Union of Concerned Scientists put out, they actually did a survey of all of the coastline in the United States and where it gets inundated with flooding, what communities get inundated with flooding. I think we're at like 150 or something like that. They get regularly inundated, and they project it out into the future every 10 to 25 years. By the end of the century, under the worst-case scenario, Arlington actually popped up on the list as at about 10% of the time being inundated. Because of the tidal flow from Mystic and such. So I just put that out as an aside. So I'm just asking the board for authorization to sign this statement.
Oh, he had his hand up in a second.
Mr. Dunn.
I move approval, and I just want to say that part of, I support this in no small part because of the votes that we've taken at town meeting. This is something that I'd hesitate as a board to take just, on the basis of us. But with the support of previous votes of town meeting, I can happily support this.
I can second that with the caveat that, unlike a previous colleague of mine, you will not promote yourself to mayor of Arlington.
No.
And you will be Selectman Chair Joe Kiro, Master. Oh, but honest to God, that happened so many times when I first got on the board. So,
No.
or however you want to list yourself. But if the title of mayor is up for grabs,
I will
there's a
not
lot of
promote myself to mayor of Arlington.
having a little fun. But anyways, that's a true story.
Okay.
Marie's the mayor, you can't have
Yeah,
that.
Marie's the mayor, yeah. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, okay, it's unanimous. We now have correspondence received, one second. PDF again, I gotta remember to bring the print copy with me. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. That's the first one. That's the
Okay.
other ones. Not my squiggles.
Request to return to 1 hour parking in front of Arlington Chiropractic by Gregory Bauer, DC. Resignation from the Zoning Board of Appeals, Suzanne Spinney, and Island at intersection of Route 2 and Pleasant Street, Kathleen Dwyer, 128 Pleasant Street. Do I have a motion?
Move receipt.
A motion received by Ms. Mahan. Have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Byrne. I had something I wanted to note on this. We're sorry to see Ms. Spinney resigning from the ZBA. If the board is amenable, I would like to reach out to the current alternate on the ZBA and see if they're interested in our appointing them as the full member. In that case, we'd probably bring it up in the next meeting for our formal consideration. And then we would have to advertise, obviously, for an alternate.
I would strongly support that, having gone through that process, and
Yeah.
it's worst thing
Seems
is
that
when you
there's a
have
reason
two
that you
great
have
and you can only
alternates.
put one.
Okay, so we have a motion to receive. Second, Mr. Dunn.
Is it the appropriate to refer the parking one to parking implementation group, or is it
Well,
too settled?
I am looking at the map of the parking benefits district, and that does not fall in the map of the parking benefits district.
So it,
So,
may
but
I-
it did change at that same time.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, may I?
Yeah.
So that, you're right, that it's not within the parking benefit district because it's not metered, but that 4-hour limit was part of the broader parking management strategy. We've yet to break from the policy that had been adopted by the board, but I think it would be fair for the PIGC to take a look at it and, look at it based on its merits and then come back to this board with a recommendation.
Yeah, I would tend to agree.
And if the answer is no, the answer, I want to hear, either, whatever the answer is, I'm curious what the answer is.
No, it's a good test case, right?
Yep.
Okay, so we have an instruction to the chair on the ZBA. We have a referral to the Parking Implementation Governance Committee on that one. Anything else?
On the last item,
Yeah.
we are actually very soon to be making some improvements to that island as part of a Gateway Improvements Program that was funded several years ago, so I can respond to this resident informing her of that if the board would like.
Okay, we'll refer that one to the manager.
Is that change going to be, so there's the island that's actually on Pleasant Street, and then there's the island that's in the middle of the bridge. We're talking about the island that's
On Pleasant Street.
on Pleasant Street, okay.
That's
That
the
island-
one I'm talking about. I'm not.
Okay,
I'll
I
check
think
if
so
that's what
too.
she is.
I will say that island that's actually on the bridge, suffers a lot too. It gets a lot of wayward driver, because the angle of Pleasant Street across Route 2 is that a lot of people who are coming, say, from, Lexington direction and making a left onto Pleasant Street will go up over the island. And the do not drive on the island sign regularly is a fatality of that incident.
Can we change do to did you?
Exactly. But I don't know, so, but I guess that's probably outside the scope of what your project is looking at, but, okay.
Take a look. It's
Yeah.
probably MassDOT jurisdiction.
It
but-
probably is.
Okay, so we have our referrals and a motion to receive. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Very, very well. So now we move on to new business. Ms. Kropelka.
Just gonna remind everyone, the polls are open tomorrow morning at 6:30 if you wanna be there, 6:30 to 8, and then I wanna,
6:30?
Did we
Yes.
push that up?
no, because it's a state election, they open at, well, I should say it opens at 7, we have to be there at 6:30,
That's right.
sorry about
Let's stick with 7. Unless you're gonna get a surprise at 6:30.
Like, when did we vote that?
No, we have to be there at 6:30. Everybody else is 7 o'clock, 7 to 8. And then to remind you all about Saturday, and you want to make the meeting for the goal setting at 8 o'clock or 8:30.
Yeah, there's some differing recollections on we agreed to.
My opinion is sooner in, sooner out. So I can meet as early as you all want.
And I'm fine with 8. Do it? Okay.
8 o'clock.
For 8.
Okay, that's all right.
That's my gift to you for your wedding.
Thank you.
And that's all I have.
That's all you have? Great. Mr. Hyde?
Mr. Chair, two quick things. One, I want to note and give credit where credit is due. Arlington has been granted limited intervener status in a Department of Public Utilities matter, which involves trying to protect our current rights under solar purchasing power agreements to maintain net metering credits the way they are. The utilities are proposing to basically decrease what we would get out of solar purchasing agreements, not only going forward, but in agreements that we already have. And Alan Mandel, Assistant City Solicitor of Newton, has really been leading that charge. He's done the majority of the work on that. He is probably going to keep doing the majority of the work on that, but he has organized and gotten Lexington, Arlington, and a number of other communities on board with joining this effort to make sure that the Department of Public Utilities knows that we oppose that specific change to an otherwise much more comprehensive set of regulatory reforms around solar.
So we truly are still in.
And the second matter is I just want to note for the board that the marijuana reform legislation with respect to recreational marijuana that came out of the House and Senate would ultimately require Arlington to put any question with respect to recreational marijuana to a ballot. It can't be decided by local officials. I'm sure you're all regretting that very deeply. But we'll look to see some other things as the landscape continues to develop a little bit, in the sense that there are some legal concerns about the State House's ability to create different rules for different communities. So it's just something to keep an eye on, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that folks have as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chaplain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One brief piece of new business. Got some statistics right at the end of the day in regards to the Community Choice Aggregation Program as the opt-out period has ended. So of our 18,462 accounts, just under 10% of residents opted out, 1,807. But we did have 189 people opt up to the 100% green option, and 43 people opt up to the 50% green option. And only 70 people opted down to the basic, which keeps you in the program but removes the extra 5%. So from what Good Energy is saying is that the 100% and the 50% opting up is high compared to some of the other communities who are doing this, and that the opt-out rate is fairly normal at just around 10%. So it seems like a good early returns. I think there'll be some refining of these numbers, but good early returns.
Excellent.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
No new business?
No new business, Mr. Dunn.
I know that the board heard this, but just in case anyone at home, the Minuteman update from Sue Scheffler came in, which I thought had a couple things that I wanted to note. One is that, so now the weighted voting begins on the school committee, and Arlington has 24.68% of the vote, and that's based on having 39% of the student. And I think the other really notable piece out of that is that Sue was elected as vice chair, and that it was a turnover of the chairman and vice chair. And I don't think that was acrimonious so much at all. But what it was is it signals that, we had a bunch of towns leave. Now they're really gone. So we have a new set of towns running also with the groundbreaking of the new school. It's very much the beginning of a new chapter for Minuteman.
I believe it's the Lexington rep is the chair, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you.
I believe so.
And I just wanted to note that because I think I look forward to seeing more changes as this new chapter unfolds. That's all I got.
No new business.
No new business. And I also have no new business.
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I slowed us all down.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.